Chapter 1085. Song Suyu immediately felt a little embarrassed. What are you talking about? We've only been together for a short while. We're different from you and Xiao Jin. If someone comes, we'll talk about it when we have time. Okay. Song Yanqing nodded, his smile still gentle. Song Yanqing was busy, but Xiao Jin was really free. When she woke up in the morning, it was already 8 o'clock in the morning. No one woke her up. She looked at the ceiling and thought about what happened last night. The discomfort in her body had completely faded. After all, her physical fitness was not comparable to that of an ordinary human. Xiao Jin basically did not have the feeling of blushing and being shy. To her, this was a fact that she had once experienced with Song Yanqing. Now it was just happening again. It was so natural. Actually, it felt very good. She was just a little dazed. On the first day of a new year, Xiao Fei said that she could not go to bed early. What was she going to do now that she was up? As she thought about this, Loud Mouth's voice came from the door. Hurry up and get up. What time is it? You're still lying in bed, and you still want people to wake you up. Xiao Jin, are you crazy? It's the first day of the new year. Can't you let people worry less? Don't you have any self-awareness? Hurry up and get up to eat glutinous rice balls. Before Loud Mouth could finish, Xiao Jin opened the door. Muzillion. Looking at Xiao Jin's hair and pajamas, Muzillion took a closer look. Hey, damn, you don't look like you've slept at all. What did you wake up? Since you're awake, why didn't you come down earlier? Why do I have to wake you up? Do you have nothing better to do? Xiao Jin looked up. Why are you up so early? Muzillion. How can you ask such a question? Don't you know what day it is? If you don't get out of bed, Mom can whip you to heaven with a feather duster. Oh, I forgot that I'm the only one in the family who has this honor. As he spoke, Muzillion began to speak in a strange tone. Mom even asked me to take you out to play today. Xiao Jin, the price is that Zhiming will return all the money he won from you last night. You won't lose anything, so don't be so shameless. Muzillion, you've changed. Xiao Jin said, I haven't changed. You're the one who's become thick-skinned. Muzillion, he angrily said, if you don't come down, I'll get angry. After saying that, he waved his hand and went downstairs. Xiao Jin changed into a new set of clothes and went downstairs. Xiao Fei was greeting Xiao Jin in the living room. Seeing Xiao Jin come downstairs, she raised her head and smiled brightly. Happy New Year, Jin. Xiao Fei's expression turned suspicious as soon as the word happy was uttered. Even though Xiao Jin didn't have any ulterior motives, his heart skipped a beat, and he said, Happy New Year, Fei Fei. Xiao Fei stared at Xiao Jin from left to right. After a few glances, she didn't see anything wrong. She still looked like a little fairy, but Xiao Fei felt that something was off. Could it be that after the new year, she looked at people differently? Xiao Fei thought to himself. Mu Jinming and the others didn't know anything. They even glanced at Xiao Fei and said, Why are you in a daze? We still have to go out after breakfast. The children also have to play. Happy New Year, Jin. Xiao Jin nodded. Jinming, Happy New Year. Mu Xiangshan chuckled. It's a new year, but you're still the same old person. Xiao Jin, Mu Jinming, Mu Qiji, and Muzichu also said Happy New Year to Xiao Jin. Obviously, other than Xiao Fei, no one else felt that something was wrong. When Xiao Jin sat down and ate breakfast calmly, Xiao Fei kept staring at her. She seemed to feel that something was wrong, but she couldn't tell what it was. Sometimes, this woman's intuition was quite scary. It was even better than an array formation master's. After all, every time Xiao Jin went to a fast food restaurant, she could smell a dangerous person every few hours. Chapter 1086. But after all, Xiao Fei's imagination was still limited. Even if she noticed something wrong, she wouldn't know what was wrong. After all, could she imagine that Xiao Jin was not at home, but at the Song family at night? After breakfast, everyone had their own things to do. Xiao Fei went to do her own things, and Xiao Jin was taken out by Muzillion. But going out together didn't mean that they had to walk all the way. Xiao Jin still decided to see Mo Jiang and others. After all, she hadn't seen the new Fan Jiaoyao yet. Today was New Year's Day. Everyone should stay at home and not run around. Although Muzillion had some opinions about Xiao Jin leaving halfway, his biggest opinion was that it was not easy to explain to Xiao Fei. But if Xiao Jin wanted to leave, could he stop her? He couldn't. So, of course, they had to do their own things. Xiao Jin arrived at the front of the apartment building. On the morning of the first day of the new year, some old customs would be observed at home, but they were all girls, so they probably wouldn't follow them. She guessed that they were all sleeping in. She had the key. When she opened the door automatically, she saw Fan Zhaoyao, who was setting up bowls and chopsticks in the living room. Fan Zhaoyao suddenly saw a stranger in the house. She was a very beautiful girl, whose unique temperament was not inferior to Mo Zhang's. The girl in front of her could also give people a sense of amazement. She was like a living fairy. Was she a goddess descending to the mortal world? Not only that, but the girl in front of her also gave her a sense of familiarity, as if she had seen her somewhere before. She also gave her a very amiable feeling. It was so strange. She had never seen her before. Because she was too surprised, Fan Zhaoyao spoke first. "Hello, who are you?" Since she had the key to the house, she was obviously not an ordinary person. Mo Jiang and others also mentioned a girl who was very powerful, but she didn't come often. Was this the girl? "I'm Xiao Jin." Xiao Jin walked in and introduced himself to Fan Zhaoyao. He asked naturally, "Where are Mo Jiang and the others?" Fan Zhaoyao said subconsciously, "I just made breakfast and was about to wake them up." Xiao Jin, so lazy. Fan Zhaoyao. After Fan Zhaoyao finished speaking, a few girls walked out of the room one after another, perhaps because they heard her voice. Meng Qingyu, Yang Qiulu, and Guo Julian walked out one by one. Among them, the most ordinary was Yang Qiulu. However, perhaps because she had been doing well recently, she was in a good mood. Although her appearance was ordinary, she had developed a delicate and pretty aura that made people feel comfortable looking at her. Seeing Xiao Jin, the three of them widened their eyes. Of course, Meng Qingyu was beaming with joy. "Boss, good morning. You came to see us on the first day of the new year. It seems like we are very important to you." Yang Qiulu and Guo Julian also smiled. "Good morning, Xiao Jin." "Morning. I had nothing to do, so I came to visit you guys." "Where's Mo Jiang?" "Still sleeping, I guess. She always sleeps very late, even in the production team. She is like the Empress Dowager." Just as they finished speaking, they heard some movement from Mo Jiang's room. Everyone looked over and saw that it was actually Mo Jiang who came out with a yawn. She glanced at them and said, "I was sleeping when I heard someone spreading rumors to mislead people. Now that I am out, it's true. Why? Now that the main character is here, all of you are complaining?" Xiao Jin. "She recently took on a palace drama?" Meng Qingyu nodded in pain. "She is acting as the Demon Empress." Xiao Jin. "It was rather suitable." Chapter 1087. If one said that Mo Jiang was amazing, then she was amazing because she could always find a suitable role for herself. Even if she didn't have any acting skills, compared to this kind of role, she was simply acting herself. Fan Zhaoyao immediately came forward and said, "The food is ready. We can eat now. I cooked glutinous rice balls this morning." Her soft voice was exceptionally pleasant to the ears. She carefully glanced at Xiao Jin and asked tentatively, "Do you want some?" Xiao Jin shook his head. "I had breakfast at home before I came." "You ate early." After saying that, she slightly raised one hand, just like those imperial concubines in ancient dramas who needed someone to support them. However, when placed on Mo Jiang's body, she did indeed look like a demon empress. Meng Qingyu may have said that, but when he saw Mo Jiang raise her hand, he subconsciously supported her hand like a lackey, acting like a eunuch. Sensing Xiao Jin's burning gaze, Meng Qingyu felt as if there was a blade on his back. He felt that he had thrown his face into the Pacific Ocean. However, it was a habit that had been formed over many days. It couldn't be changed so easily. Behind him, Yang Qiulu let out a soft laugh. Recently, Mo Jiang said that she wants to practice with us. She's getting into character in advance. Xiao Jin was silent for a moment. 3 seconds later, he gave the real answer. She doesn't need to practice at all. She was born to play this kind of role. Sigh. Mo Jiang waved her hand. Practicing is different from real acting. I'm getting into character in advance. Little Meng, move the chair away. Meng Qingyu silently pulled the chair away. Mo Jiang sat down. If it wasn't for the fact that she was sitting on an ordinary white armchair, she would have looked like an empress of the world. Guo Julian was also watching from behind, amused. Seeing that her condition had improved a lot recently, Xiao Jin asked, "How have you been recently?" Guo Julian knew what she was asking. She nodded and answered sincerely, "I'm much happier." She had money and a group of beautiful young ladies to accompany her. She accompanied Mo Jiang to watch celebrity gossip in the film crew every day. She was very happy. Under Mo Jiang's subtle influence, her feelings for Hao Jiuzong have gradually faded. Mo Jiang was right. She was beautiful and rich. She could find any man she wanted. Hao Jiuzong was the first excellent man she had met in her life. According to Mo Jiang, she had seen too few men. On the other hand, Hao Jiuzong had come to see her several times, even though they were married. She still couldn't say anything nasty. Mo Jiang and Meng Qingyu, on the other hand, were better at insulting people. Hao Jiuzong couldn't bring himself to argue with a group of women, so he could only leave angrily. He had stopped coming recently. Guo Julian was happy to be free. Xiao Jin nodded. Although he didn't know what they were carrying, Xiao Jin hoped that they would be happy. 9 array points corresponded to 9 burial pits. This sounded like a very bad association. However, she was sure that she wouldn't do anything outrageous. There must be some restraining factors. They sat down to eat glutinous rice balls. Mo Jiang introduced Fan Zhaoyao. "This is the big boss I told you about. She's the boss of our group. You can call her Xiao Jin in the future." She didn't say that it was Xiao Jin who asked her to find Fan Zhaoyao. This inadvertently avoided Fan Zhaoyao's excessive doubts and vigilance. Xiao Jin felt that Mo Jiang was very careful. She sat aside and watched them eat glutinous rice balls. She remembered that apart from these women, there was also Peng Yuan in the sanatorium. Although she wasn't familiar with Peng Yuan, he was still a formation point. He was alone. Xiao Jin planned to go and see him later. Chapter 1088. During the meal, Xiao Jin couldn't get a word in on the topic that the group of women were talking about. They were talking about the current branded cosmetics. Xiao Jin didn't wear any makeup, and the skincare was arranged by Xiao Fei. She didn't even know the brand, and now she felt that there was a serious generation gap between her and this group of women. Mo Jiang lifted his eyelids and changed the topic to Xiao Jin. "Why didn't you bring your boyfriend to meet me during the New Year?" Xiao Jin said directly, "He's busy." Mo Jiang looked up and down at Xiao Jin and suddenly said, "I don't know why, but when you came, I felt that something had changed about you, but I can't tell what's wrong." Xiao Jin, why were women so sharp these days? She casually found an excuse. "Maybe I experienced something when I came out of the time array point." Mo Jiang was thoughtful. "Did you find the space?" Xiao Jin shook her head. "I don't have any clues. There was a little, but it was a guess after all, and it couldn't be confirmed." Mo Jiang nodded. "Don't worry. The space array point has no other use for you." Xiao Jin didn't tell her that it was actually very useful. With the space array point, she could go directly to the Rakshasa world and know what happened that year, and also know what Song Yanqing experienced there. However, they just remembered that although the women here all knew that they were different, Fan Zhaoyao was new. She was just an ordinary girl that Mo Jiang invited to be his assistant after pretending to meet by chance in the hotel. In addition, Mo Jiang was really busy with the crew during this period, so he didn't have time to talk to her about anything else. So now Fan Zhaoyao didn't know what a spiritual reader master was. After she heard the conversation between Mo Jiang and Xiao Jin, her mouth was wide open for a moment. She felt that maybe she was hearing things, or maybe her cultural level was too low. Why couldn't she understand what Xiao Jin and Mo Jiang were talking about? However, the others were used to it. In fact, they didn't understand it either. Perhaps they didn't know what array points and spatial array points were, but it was the boss's business after all. They didn't want to worry about the boss's world. However, Fan Zhaoyao's surprise was still seen by Mo Jiang. Mo Jiang turned his head and saw Fan Zhaoyao's dumbfounded look. He smiled and said, "Ah, how could I forget that I haven't told you about these things?" It's like this. You have to know that in our world, there are not only normal humans, but also abnormal humans like us. Fan Zhao Yao. Everyone else. Don't you think your words are too ambiguous? What do you mean by abnormal? They're also humans. Fan Zhao Yao felt like she had boarded a pirate ship, but looking at Mo Zhang's appearance, it didn't seem like he had a mental illness. Fan Zhao Yao was dumbfounded. Xiao Jin could only sigh and say, Mo Jiang was just joking with you. Fan Zhao Yao breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Yes, Sister Mo Jiang likes to joke. She wasn't right just now. Xiao Jin became serious again. It's not that we are abnormal. It's just that compared to normal humans, we have more special abilities. People like us are called spiritual readers. You can see us as people with special abilities. The reason why we look for you is not because of anything else, but because you have the same potential. You will know about these things sooner or later, so I might as well tell you first. I was the one who asked Mo Jiang to look for you. Chapter 1089. Fan Zhaoyao was speechless. For a moment, she felt that she might not be smart enough. Or maybe she should pick up the phone in her hand and call the mental hospital to tell them that there was a very serious patient here. But looking at the serious expression on the little fairy's face, Fan Zhaoyao really couldn't associate her with a mental patient. Mo Jiang shook his wrist. The red manicure he had done for the new movie was especially bright. Aya, why are you talking so much nonsense with her? Can't you just prove it? Little Meng, perform a telekinesis. Meng Qingyu was speechless. Do you think I'm an acrobat? Although he was complaining, under Fan Zhaoyao's dumbfounded gaze, Meng Qingyu waved his hand, and a potted plant placed on the cabinet next door flew directly towards them. Meng Qingyu made a retracting motion with his hand, and the potted plant stopped steadily on the table. Fan Zhaoyao was speechless. She opened her mouth wide and looked at Mo Jiang, then at Meng Qingyu, and finally at the others. The others were already used to it. Guozhulian slowly swallowed the last glutinous rice ball and said softly, I'm full. Fan Zhaoyao felt that her heart hadn't reached the limit yet, so her eyes rolled back and she fainted. Mo Jiang was speechless. What's going on? How can the heart be so weak? Meng Qingyu was also dumbfounded. It can't be. When we went to find Qiu Lu, she didn't even faint. Xiao Jin didn't expect it either. She was stunned for a moment before waving her hand, and Fan Zhaoyao was forced to wake up. She looked at the people in front of her and took 2 deep breaths. Now, she felt that she couldn't faint even if she wanted to. She couldn't help but feel dizzy and mumbled to herself, Is this real? Mo Jiang had a headache and waved his hand impatiently. Little Meng, explain it to her and reconstruct her worldview. Meng Qingyu was speechless. Why was it always her? After eating the glutinous rice balls, Meng Qingyu hurriedly prepared Fan Zhaoyao, who had just opened the door to a new worldview. Yang Xiaolu and Guozhulian actually didn't like to talk much. It was just that in the process of Meng Qingyu's explanation, they would occasionally add a sentence or two, adding bricks and tiles to Fan Zhaoyao's already fragile worldview, which finally made Fan Zhaoyao believe. Fan Zhaoyao looked at Mo Jiang in disbelief. So at that time, Sister Mo Jiang, you did it on purpose. Sai, there are some things that we have to make clear from the start. Mo Jiang blew at his fingernails and said casually, I'm not after you, and you don't have the money or the looks to make me after you. If it weren't for Big Boss Xiao's instructions, I wouldn't have looked for you. Me asking you to be my assistant actually saved you. Think about it. Who else in the market would pay you 10,000 yuan a month and let you live in such a good apartment? Think about how you were bullied in that hotel. Did I bully you when I gave you a job? So what if I got close to you on purpose? Do you feel uncomfortable? Fan Zhaoyao was embarrassed by her words. She thought about it seriously and shook her head. No, being an assistant was simply too profitable. Previously, she felt that all her good luck in life had been used to meet Mo Jiang. His monthly salary was high, and he didn't have much to do. His other assistant, Guozhulian, was an invisible rich lady who would buy a few sets of everything. She definitely had some. Chapter 1090. Mo Jiang didn't have much to do and had a bunch of people rushing to serve her. Fan Zhaoyao really had nothing to do. She could also see a lot of people in the crew that she couldn't see before. What was bad about it? Thinking about it seriously, so what if people got close to her on purpose? They didn't harm her. She really didn't have anything that people could covet. As for Mo Jiang and the others saying that she had the potential to become a spiritual reader, she was a little confused. Xiao Jin could only say, "You save her too early. Now that she's living comfortably, she probably won't have the chance to awaken." Fan Zhaoyao. Suddenly, she felt her chest tighten. Mo Jiang, that's true. We should let her suffer for a while and let her suffer. Then she'll know if I'm good to her. Fan Zhaoyao blushed and whispered, "Sister Mo Jiang, I'm just saying it casually. I don't mean it. I know you're good to me." Guo Julian said, "You don't have to think too much. I haven't awakened an ability either." Guo Julian probably didn't have enough stimulation back then. Anyway, she didn't awaken. However, their bodies were all real array points. Fan Zhaoyao knew that it was possible for her, so she wasn't very envious. She was just curious. Is your ability like what Qingyu used just now? Not really. Everyone's ability is different. Meng Qingyu smiled. I can move anything. Xiao Lu can set fire directly. Their abilities were quite fierce, but she explained it clearly enough. Not only the ability, but also the existence of the spirit group. As spiritual readers, they were not completely unscrupulous. After explaining these things and reshaping Fan Zhaoyao's worldview, Xiao Jin had other things to do. She planned to go see Peng Yuan. Mo Jiang had nothing to do and said that he wanted to go see Peng Yuan with her. Today was the first day of the new year. Everyone was quite bored, but boredom was also a high frequency. Demonized spiritual readers weren't uncommon. Meng Qingyu and Yang Qiulu had to help the spirit group with an extra mission. Only Xiao Jin and Mo Jiang brought Fan Zhaoyao and Guo Julian to see Peng Yuan. After all, she didn't feel safe leaving the latter two alone. Xiao Jin was the only one who went to see Peng Yuan, and the others only heard about it once in a while. There was another person to stay in the sanatorium, but he was a boy after all. The sanatorium had to offer when they went. Although he was a little silly, he was honest and honest. After staying with the elders in the sanatorium for a long time, he was like a little grandson, winning the favor of the elders in the sanatorium. Now, he had even learned how to play a simple game of Gamoku. However, because of his special status, very few people came to visit him. But being silly also had its benefits. At least when he saw that his other relatives were around, he would not know what it was like to be sad when he did not have any relatives. The staff at the sanatorium said that Peng Yuan was happy every day. To him, having a full stomach and warm clothes was the greatest happiness. That was why Xiao Jin was always at ease. When they arrived at the lawn of an outdoor garden, Xiao Jin saw Peng Yuan with a few energetic old people. He was wearing a new down jacket. He had a childish smile on his face and was dancing happily. Mo Jiang's expression changed. Chapter 1091. Mo Jiang had never seen Peng Yuan before. Xiao Jin had always remembered, because Mo Jiang was not interested in Peng Yuan either. He was just a formation point. Not everyone had to live by their side. Peng Yuan was still a fool. His father was even in prison now. Xiao Jin noticed the change in Mo Jiang's expression. She turned her head at that time and saw Mo Jiang's face with a kind of shock that she had never seen before. She seemed to have seen something very shocking and sad. It was rare for her to lose her composure. She stared at Peng Yuan as if she had seen something. But in the blink of an eye, 2 lines of tears actually flowed down her face. This scared Fan Zhaoyao and Guo Julian. The two of them didn't have any special feelings for Peng Yuan, but they had never seen Mo Jiang cry before. Mo Jiang was a godly figure who couldn't cry even when he was filming. However, at this moment, her tears were real. It even made people feel the kind of sad atmosphere around her, with a kind of determined sadness. Her tears flowed, and her movements seemed to be somewhat unconscious as she walked towards Peng Yuan. To be honest, Xiao Jin didn't think that Peng Yuan would be involved with Mo Jiang. She didn't feel it either. But at this moment, she knew that Peng Yuan was related to Mo Jiang's lost memory. Just like how Mo Jiang felt hatred when he saw Xie. Now that she saw Peng Yuan, she actually shed tears. Then Peng Yuan was obviously not ordinary. Mo Jiang walked towards Peng Yuan. At that moment, she felt like her brain was about to explode. Many fragments flashed in her mind, like the memories of the past, but also like an echo. She heard a particularly cheerful voice. "Sister, when you become the high priestess, I will sing the best praises for you. Sister, you are the high priestess that everyone is looking forward to. You're my best sister. Sister, you have to live. You have to live to see hope. Hurry up and leave. Hurry up and leave. Elder sister, I don't think I can live on. I'm in so much pain. I don't want to die. I really want to see the day when you become the high priestess." The memories of the past turned into scenes that flashed in her mind. She blinked her eyes. Her tears stopped for a moment before they gushed out again. It was like a physiological reaction that she couldn't control at all. She didn't even realize that she was looking at Peng Yuan. "Ah Zhao," she said dreamily. This shout made Xiao Jin's eyes move slightly. Mo Jiang's memory was loosening. She would always remember things from the past. Could it be that she would only be able to remember things from the past when she saw someone who was more stimulating to her? Peng Yuan, who was playing chess with the old man, turned his head. The moment he saw Mo Jiang, a dazed expression appeared on his usually silly face. Fan Zhaoyao and Gui Julian were a little worried. They looked at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin shook his head to show that he was fine. Mo Jiang walked towards Peng Yuan step by step. Those people also saw her. At that time, they were a little surprised by Mo Jiang's appearance. Peng Yuan looked at Mo Jiang and was stunned for about a minute before he reacted. He broke into a silly smile and said, "Sister, you are so beautiful." Mo Jiang suddenly stopped in her tracks. She looked at Peng Yuan. In an instant, her tears flowed more violently. Her gaze was complicated. She looked at Peng Yuan and called out again, "Ah Zhao." The few old people looked at each other and whispered, "This is a sanatorium. Why are there mental patients here?" Chapter 1092. The rest of the old men immediately said, "Don't talk nonsense. She is interested in knowing little Yuan. Why haven't I seen him before? I heard that Peng Yuan has no relatives. Only a kind-hearted person sponsored him here." While they were watching, Mo Jiang had already walked to Peng Yuan. Mo Jiang was good-looking and tall. When she stood in front of Peng Yuan was about 1.7 meters tall, about the same height as her. She looked at Peng Yuan and suddenly wiped her face carelessly, wiping away her tears. She just looked at Peng Yuan and said coldly, "Are you Peng Yuan?" She didn't usually speak in this tone, so it could be concluded that she was not in a good mood now. Fan Zhaoyao and Gui Julian walked over together, followed by Xiao Jin. When Peng Yuan saw Xiao Jin, his eyes lit up. Fairy. He still had an impression of Xiao Jin. After all, Xiao Jin had visited him several times. Mo Jiang just looked at Peng Yuan. Seeing his unusual reaction, she turned to Xiao Jin with a sharp look. "He was stupid when he was a child?" Xiao Jin nodded. "He was stupid when he was born, so he didn't know how to live a normal life. But fortunately, he was able to take care of himself. His father is now in prison. He was imprisoned for arresting people. That's why I met Peng Yuan." Mo Jiang looked at Peng Yuan again. Xiao Jin asked her, "Do you remember?" Mo Jiang shook her head and then nodded. "I have some memories, but not very clear." She frowned and said coquettishly, "I have a headache." Xiao Jin. The old men looked at Xiao Jin and Mo Jiang and asked gently, "What's the relationship between you and little Yuan?" Thinking of the things in her memory, Mo Jiang blurted out, "His sister." The elders disagreed. "Since it's the elder's sister, why did you only come to see him now?" Mo Jiang was not in the right mood, but he still knew how to rebuke her. "You should know that we're not related just by looking at our faces. Why do you think I only came now?" The old man was speechless. Damn, this little girl had a sharp tongue. How could she say such heartless things so confidently? Xiao Jin knew that Mo Jiang must have recovered some key memories. Otherwise, Peng Yuan would not have such a huge change in his emotions. She waved at Peng Yuan. "Peng Yuan, come with us to the side to play." Peng Yuan replied cheerfully. Okay. Of course, he was happy to follow Pretty Sister and Fairy Sister. Xiao Jin patted Mo Jiang's shoulder, indicating for her to pay attention to her emotions. He then brought the confused Fan Zhaoyao and Guo Julian to the resting room of the sanatorium. Peng Yuan was a little restless and couldn't stay still. After sitting down, he kept looking left and right or moving his arms and legs. Mo Jiang looked at him for a while and suddenly said, "Don't move. Stay still." Strangely, Peng Yuan had a subconscious impulse to obey her, but he still muttered and couldn't help but look up at her. He was just a little dumb, but he still had the basic language skills of a child, so he could understand some words. Xiao Jin rested her chin on her hand and asked Mo Jiang, "What's going on?" Mo Jiang tried hard to say what she remembered. I think Peng Yuan might be my brother. His name should be Ya Zhao. As for his surname, it's probably the same as mine." Mo Fan Zhaoyao and Guo Julian didn't know that Mo Jiang was a 4,000-year-old female corpse. They only thought that she was a beauty, so they found their long-lost brother. Chapter 1093. Xiao Jin frowned and thought, "Reincarnation is actually a bit unreliable, because it's something that even I can't prove at the moment. Even if it's really reincarnation, it's probably because of the karma of being a formation master in the previous life. For example, you saw Xieshi. Mo Jiang looked at her. Peng Yuan's situation is like that. I'm sure that Peng Yuan is my younger brother." It was an inexplicable feeling. That memory suddenly came back to her. The two people beside her? Reincarnation? What was that? Wasn't it just a long-lost younger brother? If it was related to reincarnation, then how many years had they been separated for? Because the two of them were now on the same side, Mo Jiang and Xiao Jin didn't avoid talking about topics that were taboo to them, so they could only listen in a half-daze. Xiao Jin was silent for a moment, and felt that there were some things that she should say. "Do you still remember your identity?" Mo Jiang said, a little confused. "I'm some kind of high priest." Other than her instincts as a formation master, she had really forgotten everything that she could forget. Actually, Song Yanqing saw a bit of you pass back then. Xiao Jin told her what happened that day. "But you're a resurrected female corpse. I wasn't sure about the progress of some things, so I didn't tell you." She told Mo Jiang about what Song Yanqing saw about the Qiansong kingdom. The matter of 1,000 people sacrificing for one resurrection was quite bloody, but Fan Zhaoyao and Guo Julian felt that the big secret they heard today was on the verge of being silenced. Even if they didn't understand, they held each other's fingers tightly, afraid that Mo Jiang would react and kill them. Female corpse. Xiao Jin said that Mo Jiang was a female corpse, and it was a female corpse that was resurrected by 1,000 people's blood sacrifice. In other words, the original Mo Jiang was already dead, and she was resurrected. The world of formation masters could be so hardcore. Peng Yuan listened to their discussion in a daze. He didn't understand anything, so he could only watch. After listening to them, Mo Jiang's expression was complicated, and she smiled again. She was still charming. "That matches some of the things I've been thinking about. I vaguely know about the Qiansong kingdom you mentioned. When I first saw Xieshi, I had a memory, but it wasn't very obvious. Today, it's obvious." Mo Jiang lowered his head, and there was a hint of viciousness in his voice. "I'm not sure about some things. The only thing I'm sure of is that Xieshi probably had something to do with the destruction of my country. Otherwise, I wouldn't have hated him. A Zhao died before I became the high priest." These words were enough for her to get some information. She frowned. "That's the key point. Why can't I have a complete memory, even though I know all this? That means that the most important person hasn't appeared yet." Xiao Jin said, "You can recover a little after seeing Peng Yuan. You have to have a target for hatred for something as big as the destruction of your country. Qiansong sacrificed so many people to resurrect you and restore your country. Who do you think destroyed your country?" Mo Jiang looked at Xiao Jin and narrowed her eyes. "Why go back today? I'll take a look at all the celebrities in the entertainment industry. If I can meet Xieshi, the chances of meeting a second enemy in the same industry is higher." Xiao Jin, Fan Zhaoyao, and Guo Julian trembled. They were too familiar with Xieshi. They had interacted with him in the film crew. However, Mo Jiang's sister said that she had a grudge against him. When they thought of how she followed Mo Jiang around like a dog, their expressions became complicated. This was probably the most vicious revenge, right? Chapter 1094. Xiao Jin did not expect Mo Jiang to be related to Peng Yuan. Now, that Mo Jiang saw Peng Yuan, she was no longer as indifferent as before. She even planned to take Peng Yuan back. Peng Yuan is a boy, and he needs someone to take care of him. It's not appropriate to take him back. Which one of you is going to take care of him? Guo Julian and Fan Zhaoyao both had the same thought. Xiao Jin took the initiative to say, "He's in the sanatorium now. I've set up a formation, so he'll be fine. You have to consider reality." Mo Jiang thought about it and agreed. It would be fine if Peng Yuan's brain was fine, but his IQ was not. This was not derogatory. He had been dumb since he was young. Mo Jiang had a complicated look in her eyes. Can't you turn him back to normal? There isn't such a formation. Formations could do things that defied the heavens and changed fate, but it was difficult to turn a dumb person into smart. There was no corresponding formation that could do such a thing. Mo Jiang also knew this, so she could only regretfully give up. However, they still stayed in the sanatorium for a long time. Perhaps it was because of the unexpected surprise. Mo Jiang was very patient with Peng Yuan. She was not as arrogant as she usually was. She got along well with Peng Yuan. At night, she even informed the sanatorium that she would bring Peng Yuan out for hot pot and bring him back after the meal. This was something they had discussed long ago. They were going to eat hot pot together at night. Xiao Jin did not refuse. At night, she called home and said that she would not be going back for dinner. Yang Xiulu and Meng Qingyu also came back from work. They found a place to eat hot pot and asked for a private room. Peng Yuan was a little dumb. He did not usually eat such things, so he was very happy to eat hot pot. It was just that something unexpected happened. Mo Jiang was probably famous now. Someone took a picture of them while they were eating. Mo Jiang did not mind at all. In fact, he was used to it. Xiao Jin did not mind. Anyway, as long as she was in the frame, the photos would eventually disappear. During the meal, Mo Jiang was in a rare daze. She stared at the hot pot with a troubled expression. "Although I'm a formation master and my senses aren't as sharp as yours, I have a bad feeling. I keep feeling that something big is about to happen." Xiao Jin paused. "Your premonition?" Mo Jiang nodded. "Yes. Do you have it?" Meng Qingyu was stunned for a moment before he said, "Actually, I have one too." Mo Jiang and the rest looked at her. Meng Qingyu covered her neck and said, "I just feel a little uneasy recently. I can't tell what's wrong." Yang Qiulu suddenly whispered, "I have the same feeling." Xiao Jin's face sank. It wasn't a good thing for all the spiritual readers to be able to sense that something was wrong. However, she didn't have such a premonition recently. This was not normal. Mo Jiang saw Xiao Jin's expression and realized something was wrong. "You didn't feel it?" Xiao Jin shook his head. Mo Jiang looked a little hesitant. "Could it be that this matter will not affect you?" "No." Xiao Jin shook his head with certainty. "I can't feel it. You all can feel it. That can only mean one thing. It's targeted and deliberately blocked me." She probably had a feeling. Mo Jiang opened his eyes. "Blocked you? Is there anyone else who has the ability to do that?" Xiao Jin only slowly raised his head and asked her a question. "Do you know about the Rakshasa realm?" Chapter 1095. Mo Jiang was a little confused. The Rakshasa realm? Logically speaking, the Rakshasa realm did not exist in the meaning of the subsequent formation masters. This was because the entrance to the Rakshasa realm had long been closed by Xiao Jin using the rules of the formation points. Regarding the memories of the Rakshasa realm, at most, the formation masters knew about demonization. But where did the ability to demonize come from? Why was it demonized? Why couldn't this world accommodate demonized formation masters? Because demonization itself was a power that did not belong to this world. It would be rejected. That was why it could give birth to spiritual readers to kill demonized spiritual readers. What happened 10,000 years ago was not the end. At least, Xiao Jin knew that it was only temporarily closed. Song Yanqing still had spiritual awareness in the Rakshasa realm. It would eventually make a comeback one day. And now, she felt that it was about time. The Rakshasa realm existed in another space 10,000 years ago. Xiao Jin briefly explained what had happened in the past, but he did not say the specific reason. He only said, "The reason for blocking me is probably that the entrance to the Rakshasa realm is about to reappear. The intersection that had once appeared was about to reappear in the light of day." Mo Zhang's pupils constricted. Such a dangerous thing? She had never heard of it. The source of the demonized spiritual readers all along had an answer. That thing is a disaster for spiritual readers. It's not strange that you received a hint. Xiao Jin thought for a moment. At this moment, Xiao Jin's phone received a message from Zhongli Painting. A new burial pit has appeared in Dingzhou City, Xujiang City. Two appeared at once. This matched Xiao Jin's guess. She was only 3 formation points away from finding them. 2 burial pits had appeared, so there were only 2 left. What about the remaining 3 formation points? Mo Jiang saw Xiao Jin's solemn expression and realized that the matter this time was really not simple. If what Xiao Jin said was true, that thing almost destroyed the world 10,000 years ago, then in this life, the tragedy would probably still happen. No matter what, the burial pit had appeared. She had to go out and take a look. After hurriedly finishing his meal, he asked Mo Jiang and the rest to send Peng Yuan back. Xiao Jin still booked the plane ticket for that night and gave Song Yanqing a call. "I need to go to another city. A new mass grave has appeared. I need to go take a look." Song Yanqing knew about Xiao Jin's mission. He thought for a moment and said, "Then you have to take care of yourself." Xiao Jin hummed and said, "I know." This time, Song Yanqing probably had something to do and couldn't accompany her. She prepared to go to Dingzhou City first. Just as she was about to depart, Xiao Jin, who was sitting in the bustling airport, looked up and saw the big screen in the airport suddenly broadcasting a piece of foreign news. In the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean, or perhaps in the middle of it, a huge underwater vortex appeared. This vortex appeared suddenly and didn't belong to any natural phenomenon. At present, it had already attracted the attention of many countries. The reason it was broadcasted was naturally because it had already spread on the internet, because it was discovered by ordinary people first. It was said that an entire ship had been swallowed, and no trace of it had been found until now. There wasn't much other information. Xiao Jin saw the vortex on the screen. It emitted a deep, dark aura, and a familiar feeling hit her in the face. She sat up slightly and saw the vortex. She remembered the junction in her memory. When the entrance to the Rakshasa world first appeared, it was like this. History was repeating itself once again. Chapter 1096. It was the same when the border first appeared. After that, it lasted for half a year before it fluctuated, and then it was the invasion of the Rakshasa world. However, Xiao Jin felt that the border this time would probably be broken in less than half a year, because there were uncertain factors this time. At the moment, the people on TV were still in a state of confusion about the appearance of this huge whirlpool. They thought that it was some new phenomenon at the bottom of the sea. After all, it was not like whirlpools had never appeared in the sea before. Only a small number of people knew that the appearance of a whirlpool was a disaster for this world. At the moment, she was in the airport. Not long after, Song Yanqing called her again. "A whirlpool has appeared in the Pacific Ocean recently. Did you know?" Obviously, he had received the news not long ago. Or rather, when a whirlpool first appeared, he was specifically targeted like Xiao Jin. At the moment, his voice sounded a little cold. He probably had a bad premonition. "I saw it. It's the border," Xiao Jin said very firmly. "But it hasn't fully unfolded yet. I'm inclined to think that the people here haven't completely connected yet." Song Yanqing was a little surprised. Completely connected? Xiao Jin thought for a moment. Yes, it's Mo Feihuan. The reappearance of the Rakshasa world definitely requires power to open it. This power can only be Mo Feihuan. He has been active for so many years. His goal is also this. Back then, she had only closed the Rakshasa world, not destroyed it. But back then, she had paid such a huge price. Now, If she wanted to completely close the Rakshasa world, what would she have to pay? She did not want to see these things happen again. Something should end this time. Until now, Mo Feihuan had not actually appeared in Xiao Jin's field of vision. Or perhaps he could be sure that Mo Huan was him. But he was a cunning person. Including the matter of the burial pit, Xiao Jin felt that he was the one who did it. The original array. It must be related to the Rakshasa world in some way. The 9 array points she had set up back then might have been to deal with today's matter. After all, there was still a memory that she could not remember. Song Yanqing thought for a moment and asked, how long will the fluctuation last? He was asking about the fluctuations at the border. When would the Rakshasa world rush over? If there is a big reaction, we will all feel it. If the Rakshasa world were to rush over, it would definitely cover the sky and cover the sun, and everyone would be able to see it. At that time, the secret of the array masters in this world would not be able to be kept unless the various countries had the ability to cover up all of this. But obviously, when it came to such an extraordinary thing, even with the current technology, it was very troublesome. The appearance of the vortex was bound to cause some disturbances, but judging from the current situation, they were most likely unaware of the severity of the situation. This was because even He Yao and the others had not sent a message to Xiao Jin. He Yao would definitely notify Xiao Jin if there were any abnormalities. Since she didn't notify him now, it could only mean that they didn't know that the whirlpool that appeared was at the border of the Rakshasa world. At this moment, Song Yanqing also felt that a storm was coming, and only they could feel this premonition. As far as the eye could see, there were still countless ordinary people living in this world. They might not know that the world was about to undergo earth-shaking changes. He thought of everything he had seen in the time array points and said softly, "Everything will be fine, Jean." Chapter 1097. Okay. Xiao Jin believed what he said. I still want to take a look at the corpse burial pits. Currently, each corpse burial pit corresponds to something different. I'll go to Dingzhou City first. Okay, be careful. After hanging up the phone, it was almost time to board the plane. She took the plane to Dingzhou City to check out the corpse burial pits. As she expected, each corpse burial pit corresponded to a different array formation, but without exception, they were all harmful array formations. Moreover, the energy produced in these corpse burial pits was far greater than what Mo Feihuan needed to survive. The corpse burial pit that appeared in Dingzhou City was a little strange, and the news was not kept secret very well. This was because it was located in the city center and was once a sports stadium. For some reason, it was not discovered when it was being built, but it was discovered when it was being dismantled and rebuilt. Moreover, this corpse burial pit had more corpses than the previous ones. According to the information provided by Ji Mingming and the others, the number of corpses here was at least in the thousands. When human lives were only a number, other than shock, there was even more horror. I don't know how many thousands of people there are. Thousands of lives. Ji Mingming looked at the corpse burial pits and felt more and more depressed. Before they died, they were tortured to a certain extent. Xiao Jin, what kind of terrifying person do you think would cause so many deaths? What is he trying to do? Xiao Jin looked at the pile of corpses in the corpse burial pit. Because there were too many corpses, it would take a certain amount of time to clean them up. Until now, the corpses in the other cities had not been completely cleaned up, not to mention there were thousands of corpses here. Xiao Jin's expression was rarely serious. She said, "There are 2 more corpse burial pits. I have a bad feeling. There might be a mass grave left." Ji Mingming's face suddenly turned pale. Mass grave? One is a mass grave filled with psychic readers, and the other is a mass grave. Due to its uniqueness and the large number of people, the higher the difficulty, the later it will appear. Some information about the origin formation suddenly appeared in Xiao Jin's mind. According to the current number of burial pits, the first few were at most general probing. This was because the later ones meant that the stronger the formation, the higher the price to pay. Therefore, there would be more and more people. Other than the pit of 10,000 people, if Xiao Jin's guess was correct, there would be a main pit filled with spiritual readers. even if they had sacrificed the lives of all the spiritual readers in order to close the Rakshasa world. However, it was clear that spiritual readers of the later era were not extinct. Even now, it was known that Mo Fei Huan had that ability. Other normal spiritual readers were definitely not his match. Using a spiritual psyche master as a formation was the key to opening the entrance to the Rakshasa realm. After all, back then, when the entrance to the Rakshasa realm was closed, the price they paid was also the life of the spiritual reader. The difference was that one was voluntary, while the other was completely mutilated, using the cruelest means to torture and kill them. Xiao Jin closed her eyes. Since she was born, she had always believed in respecting karma and all living things in this world. It was hard for her to imagine that the viciousness of people's hearts could be boundless. I'm going to call and inform them to screen it as soon as possible. Ji Mingming realized that this was not a big deal. Since ancient times, there had been many ordinary corpse burial pits. However, the problem was that corpse pits during the war era and people who had been tortured to death were buried in the same pit. If this kind of vile thing were to spread, it would definitely cause a sensation. Chapter 1098. There were too many secrets involved in this. Xiao Jin waited for her to finish informing the spirit group and asked, "Do you know that a vortex has appeared in the Pacific Ocean recently? You saw that news too?" Sure enough, Ji Mingming and the others did not have the concept of the Rakshasa realm. They only said, "It should be something that was accidentally formed. We have heard of this news." Ji Mingming did not take it seriously at first, but when she heard Xiao Jin mention it, she instinctively had a bad premonition. Could it be that there is a problem with the vortex? Xiao Jin stared at her deeply. If one day this world is going to be destroyed, and the only price is to use the lives of us spiritual readers to offset it, would you be willing? The smile on Ji Mingming's lips was a little stiff. It can't be to that extent, right? However, when Xiao Jin said it, she instantly felt that it was not very good, because what Xiao Jin said could very well become a reality. "I understand," Xiao Jin said softly. After all, this era was different from that era. Back then, she was a formation master above a country. The spiritual readers of that era knew their responsibilities, so the rules could use their lives as the price to seal off the Rakshasa realm. And now, these spiritual readers did not even have the concept of the Rakshasa realm. It was obviously unrealistic to expect them to sacrifice themselves for the world. Moreover, this time, Xiao Jin did not intend to go to this step. She knew that there was still one mystery on her that had not been solved, and this mystery might be the key to solving the Rakshasa realm. Since it was two different worlds, there should not be any involvement. It should have been cut off from the beginning, even if there were no more spiritual readers in this world from now on. Recently, she had a thought that was gradually growing stronger. If her thought was true, then things were even more shocking than she had imagined. After looking at the burial pit in Dingzhou City, she still had to go to another new burial pit. After all, she had found two at once this time. The news from another city had also reached her first. As she had expected, the other burial pit was also at the level of 1,000 people. Then, the probability that one of the last two burial pits was a mass grave was very high. There was also a burial pit in Xujiang City. When Xiao Jin arrived, he first stayed in a hotel with Ji Mingming. When they arrived, it was early in the morning. Ji Mingming asked Xiao Jin if he wanted to rest. Xiao Jin said no, and the two of them rushed to the location in the early morning. The situation in Sujiang City's corpse burial pit was similar. It was a pit of 1,000 people in an incomparably ferocious array formation. Xiao Jin felt that there was a thread in her mind that was gradually becoming clearer. Now, she only lacked the key words. On the way back to the hotel with Ji Mingming, it was already 4 in the morning. The driver of the spirit group drove them here. In the car, Ji Mingming hugged her arms and got goosebumps. It's the new year, and we still have to rush to these places. If it weren't for the fact that we are special, I would definitely be scared to death. After all, not everyone had the courage to look at a burial pit where thousands of people were buried in the middle of the night. However, they still went. Xiao Jin curled her lips into a smile. When the car passed by a place, she suddenly smelled a bloody smell. The bloody smell was very faint. If not for her sensitive sense of smell, she would not have been able to smell it. Moreover, there seemed to be a faint moaning sound. She subconsciously said, "Stop the car." The driver responded and stopped the car. Ji Mingming was stunned for a moment. She looked around and saw that it was a relatively remote corner. There were only continuous flat buildings on the side of the road. The tall buildings were on the other side. Other than the street lights, there was only a large garbage dump opposite. Chapter 1099. Why are you stopping here? Ji Mingming asked her. Xiao Jin wasn't doing this for no reason. Smelling blood was one thing, but more importantly, she didn't want to miss out on anything that felt wrong. Just like this person who was probably in trouble. After getting out of the car, Xiao Jin walked straight to the garbage dump. That was where the nearby residents threw their garbage. The garbage hadn't been cleaned up yet. It was full of garbage, and there was a foul stench. The garbage would be taken care of in an hour by specialized personnel. When she went over, the first thing she saw was a worn-out suitcase that was particularly conspicuous on top of a pile of rubbish that had been piled up to the point that they could not fit in the rubbish. It looked very old and had been thrown away. However, Xiao Jin only took a glance and pointed to the suitcase to Ji Mingming. "There's a person inside." Ji Mingming? She looked at the suitcase in shock. What the fuck? She couldn't help but swear. She looked around and asked, "How do I get it?" With a wave of Xiao Jin's hand, the suitcase flew towards them. It was already stained with a lot of garbage and some strange liquid. Just looking at it made one unable to touch it. Fortunately, Xiao Jin and the rest weren't normal people. She just turned her hand, and the suitcase slowly opened by itself. What came into view was a girl curled up in the suitcase. She was wearing a thin white shirt. In such cold weather, she would have frozen to death even if nothing happened. Her body was stained with red marks. Her body was trembling slightly, as if she didn't have the strength to speak. Occasionally, she would let out a soft moan. Ji Mingming was shocked when she saw that there was really a person inside. She immediately called 120. They were array formation masters, not doctors. This kind of thing would definitely be sent to the hospital. The moment Xiao Jin saw the girl, she understood what was going on. It was indeed a ray formation point. It seemed that if she hadn't appeared today, a ray formation point would have been done for. Xiao Jin probably noticed it because she had expected it. Not knowing how the girl was doing, Ji Mingming did not dare to move. She squatted on the spot and waited for the emergency treatment. She was a little anxious. Could she still hold on? Xiao Jin said, "It's okay. I'll hold her down. She can hold on until 120. She was stabbed with a knife. There are rope marks on her neck. She was probably strangled before." She could see the simple situation. Seeing that the girl's face was starting to turn blue from the cold, Xiao Jin asked the driver to bring a blanket from the car to cover her. The girl was already delirious. At this moment, it was her weak consciousness that allowed her to persist until now. If it wasn't for Xiao Jin's sharp senses, she would have lost her life here. Xiao Jin stretched out his hand and set up a formation. Through the connection points on her body, red silk threads extended along the girl's body to the center of the city. There was a tall building in the city center that looked like a hotel. The girl was special. She did not mind using the demonized spirit seed to help her find the culprit, and the murderer was now in that building. But to be able to dump the corpse so far away, the girl had clearly been abandoned for a few hours. 10 minutes later, 120 arrived. When the girl was brought to the hospital for emergency treatment, Xiao Jin and Ji Mingming naturally had to explain the whole story. After all, how they found the girl here was a big problem. The police had also received a report from the hospital and were rushing over. Chapter 1100. The girl's name was Zhang Qiutong. This was the information that the police found out after she was sent to the hospital. The reason why it was so fast was that the other party was a famous person. She was the daughter of the richest man in the city. She was rich, very rich. Such a girl did not seem to meet the requirements of a formation point. However, just the fact that she was killed and her body was dumped in a suitcase was enough to prove that she was indeed tragic. However, she should have been living a good life in the past. According to the information that Xiao Jin saw, Zhang Qiutong was involved in a crime of passion. Her life in the past was too good. Probably because the incident happened so suddenly, she did not have any time to react and did not even have the chance to awaken. If Xiao Jin hadn't happened to pass by, it really was a coincidence. Her formation point might have disappeared without a trace. Xiao Jin was not sure if she would still see the disappearing formation point. After all, some formation points would still exist even if the person was dead. Ji Mengming's identity was special, so when the police came, she had time to deal with everything. Xiao Jin and she were not taken to the police station for investigation. However, because it was a murder case, Xiao Jin and the others made a statement and information at the hospital. Soon, they arrested the murderer who was now staying in the hotel. Zhang Qiutong's ex. It was a very old-fashioned story of a rich and beautiful man who failed to marry a rich and beautiful woman. Because of this, his love turned into hatred, resulting in a crime of passion. However, the rich and beautiful man was timid. When he killed Zhang Qiutong, he did not even dare to take away the $1 million Rolex watch on her. That was why her identity was found out so quickly. 30 minutes after Zhang Qiutong was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment, Zhang Qiutong's father was still abroad discussing business. When he found out that Zhang Qiutong was in trouble, he cried on the spot on the phone. It was obvious that he was a father in grief and despair. After knowing that his daughter was saved, he was extremely grateful and booked a plane to rush back as fast as he could. However, because the journey abroad was long, it would take more than 20 hours for him to return in time. Therefore, the person who came to see Zhang Qiutong was her stepmother. Ji Mengming originally thought that Xiao Jin would leave after dealing with the matter. After all, they were here to deal with some matters. However, she did not expect that Xiao Jin would stay in the hospital after seeing Zhang Qiutong's stepmother. It was already 6 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours after Zhang Qiutong was found. Her stepmother finally arrived. Xiao Jin decided not to leave after seeing this person, because she realized that things were far from simple. Her stepmother's body was surrounded by a black aura that was related to Zhang Qiutong. This was clearly a sign that she was involved in a murder case. Of course, ordinary people would also have this kind of black qi. Only a formation master like Xiao Jin could see it. However, even if ordinary people had black aura, the retribution they would receive might not be certain. It all depended on fate. Her stepmother's name was Wanda Xin, and she was also a well-known pianist. She had an elegant temperament and looked like a noble lady. However, she came in a hurry and only wore a thick coat over her pajamas. Her hair was also a little messy. It was probably this dressing that showed how surprised and sad she was about her daughter's accident. When she arrived at the hospital, she couldn't help but burst into tears. She asked the doctor, "How's my Tong heir?" Accompanying her was the housekeeper of the house. He was very old, and at this moment, it was obvious that he was sad. If it weren't for Xiao Jin's ability to see things that ordinary people couldn't, probably no one would doubt this stepmother's acting skills. Chapter 1101. This person is called Wanda Xin. She's 40 years old this year. Zhang Qiutong's mother died during childbirth, so Wanda Xin married her father very early. It's been more than 10 years. She has always treated Zhang Qiutong as her own daughter. Ji Mengming reported Zhang Qiutong's information to Xiao Jin in a low voice. This was mainly because Xiao Jin had suddenly asked Ji Mengming to investigate. Xiao Jin nodded. Continue. Ji Mengming did not understand why Xiao Jin was so concerned about Zhang Qiutong's matter, because the police had already found the murderer and the murder weapon had not been cleaned up. Perhaps the murderer did not expect the police to come to him so quickly, and he was caught off guard. All the evidence was found, and he confessed very thoroughly. It was just an ordinary murder of love. However, Xiao Jin naturally had his reasons, so Ji Mengming still used her channels to find information that ordinary people could not find. After all, Zhang Qiudong's father was the richest man in the world. Some information was public, but some could not be found. Wang Dexin has been taking care of Zhang Qiudong very well since she was young. This time, no one expected this. The man who killed Zhang Qiudong was someone Zhang Qiudong met when she was doing her internship outside. The two of them had a good relationship, but because of the other party's insatiable greed, Zhang Qiudong broke up with the other party under the advice of her friend. Unexpectedly, the other party had the intention to kill her. According to the other party's confession, he actually did not know that Zhang Qiudong was so rich and only thought that Zhang Qiudong was a daughter of a rich family. He thought that the other party was playing with his feelings, so he confessed so quickly. Xiao Jin curled his lips. In just 2 hours, the murderer was caught. The information was given so quickly. This person knows how to use a suitcase to dispose of the body. This person is not simple. As soon as he said this, Ji Mingming instantly understood what was wrong, and her hair stood on end. Is there a secret? She asked tentatively. Xiao Ji nodded directly and pointed at Wang Dexin. She is also the mastermind. Ji Mingming. Fuck, I'm a little shocked that you said it so directly. After thinking for a moment, Ji Mingming looked at the information sheet again. As if confirming something, she gasped. Oh right, Wang Dexin gave birth to a younger brother for Zhang Qiudong 10 years ago. However, the siblings were very close. Zhang Qiudong's family has never been estranged. Wang Dexin treated her like the apple of her eye. Xiao Jin, money is a very tempting thing. It would be fine if it was just an average amount, but it was a lot. Even if I don't know some laws, I know that if Zhang Qiudong's father really loves her, it wouldn't be too much to give her half of his assets, right? Do you think Wang Dexin would be willing to let half of her fortune fall into the hands of another woman's child? Once some people start putting on an act, they can put on an act for a lifetime. The reason for the murder couldn't be more obvious. Otherwise, there was no reason for Wang Dexin to find such an extreme man to approach Zhang Qiudong. She could find a better way to get rid of Zhang Qiudong. However, she didn't want to implicate herself. But as long as she was a little involved, some traces would always be there. The real reason couldn't be completely determined, but Wang Dexin couldn't get away with it. That was for sure. While they were discussing the murderer, the doctor and the police explained the situation to Wang Dexin. They even told her about how someone saved Zhang Qiudong. Wang Dexin's gaze immediately turned to Xiao Jin. Chapter 11:02. It was Xiao Jin and Ji Mingming who found Zhang Qiudong by chance. In their testimony, they said that they heard strange noises in the garbage dump. This was indeed a reason. The problem was that they were driving on the main road, but why could they hear the weak moans in the suitcase from so far away? Ji Mingming didn't hear it, but Xiao Jin did. There was no doubt that the big boss was awesome. Ji Mingming used her identity to cover up this inconspicuous bug. The police didn't explain in detail. They only told Wang Dexin that the two people found Zhang Qiudong. Wang Dexin was indeed beautiful and generous. More importantly, she had an extraordinary temperament and speech. Otherwise, Zhang Qiudong's father wouldn't have taken a fancy to her. She was also the daughter of a university professor. At that time, she was quite a famous scholarly family. Her temperament and identity were excellent. Although she was married to such a man as his second wife, he was rich enough. This was a small matter. In fact, Zhang Qiudong's father wasn't as rich as he was now. After Wang Dexin married him, he became richer and richer. It was hard to say whether some things had changed at this time. I heard that you were the ones who found Tong. Wang Dexin walked over. Her eyes were filled with tears. She looked very sad, and it was obvious that she was upset. She looked at Xiao Jin and Ji Mingming and said gratefully, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I don't dare to imagine my Tong." She was too emotional and her tone was a little choked up. She was too sad and didn't continue. In fact, Xiao Jin was still a little confused. Was this person's acting really so good? Wang Dexin's acting was really good. It was as if she was sincerely sad about Zhang Qiudong's matter, but it couldn't hide the dark aura emitted from her body. If Xiao Jin wasn't an array master, a person like Wang Dexin would be a very scary person. She looked harmless and had excellent acting skills, but she didn't know that what she wanted was your life. You're welcome. This is what we should do. Xiao Jin had a fairy-like temperament and didn't like to talk much. Ji Mingming first responded to Wanda Xin on her behalf. Anyone who encounters such a thing will call the police. I hope Miss Zhang will be blessed. Although Zhang Xiaodong was still in the emergency treatment and they didn't know her condition, Xiao Jin just said that Zhang Xiaodong would be fine. She would just need to recuperate for a long time. Her life was saved, but I heard that the murderer was crazy. My Zhang's family, if it wasn't for you. She couldn't continue. She choked up and said, the Zhang family will never forget such a great favor. If the two ladies need anything, the Zhang will definitely help. Will definitely help you twos if there is anything. If you two ladies need anything help need, and even in such a sorrowful state, she still did things properly. Most people would find it hard to refuse the Zhang family's gratitude. Ji Mingming also thought so. After all, the big boss was the big boss. He didn't care about money when saving people, even if the other party was the daughter of the richest man. Just as she was about to politely decline, she heard the big boss say coldly, "All right, then I'll thank Mrs. Zhang." Ji Mingming. Mingming, didn't we say that money is just a worldly possession? Oh, Mingming didn't say that. She even asked for 10 million yuan every time she went on a mission. Chapter 1103. Wanda Xin was surprised to hear that Xiao Jin didn't reject her. But soon, her eyes flashed with a sneer. However, this strange emotion appeared when she lowered her head. Not many people saw it, so others didn't notice it at all. That's how it should be. Please wait here for a moment. I still have to wait for Chiu Tong's news. If the two of you are too tired, you can rest first. I'll get the butler to book a presidential suite for you in the best hotel in the city. The girl in front of her was like a fairy. At first glance, Wanda Xin knew that she definitely had an extraordinary background. A girl with such a temperament and appearance was definitely not raised by an ordinary family. Therefore, she wouldn't make any other moves for the time being and would just do things according to the rules. Although these two people had ruined her carefully planned good thing, they were only temporarily saved. As long as they were by her side, there would be opportunities to make a move. Thinking of this, a trace of darkness flashed in Wanda Xin's eyes. When she looked up, she still had a sad look. That's not necessary. The one who spoke was still Xiao Jin. She said, "We're also worried about Miss Zhang's situation. After all, we saved her. Let's wait here for Miss Zhang to be rescued so that we can be at ease." Although she felt that something was wrong, it seemed to be a normal request. Wanda Xin didn't doubt her and nodded. "You're so considerate. Then sit here. Butler, go buy breakfast for these two ladies. Go buy it at Wanfu Building. They must be hungry." Wanfu Building was the largest restaurant in Xujiang City. It was very famous. Although the price was high, it still couldn't stop the long line every day. The main thing was that the taste was really good. It had become a big attraction in Xujiang City. Many people who came to Xujiang City would try it for the sake of Wanfu Building. The butler nodded and went, accompanied by a few bodyguards of the Zhang family who were guarding the hospital. At this moment, the sky was breaking and the sun was rising. It was a rare warm day. It was only the third day of the new year. It was supposed to be a good day, but she didn't expect something like this to happen. When they sat down, Xiao Jin looked around. Without waiting for Wanda Xin to take the initiative to speak, he asked, "Mrs. Zhang, actually, we are a little surprised. Miss Zhang is the pearl of the Zhang family. You know that she has a noble status, but why don't you have bodyguards by her side?" This was a very normal question. After all, the police had already informed them of her identity during the investigation. He was also a reporter, so it was normal for him to know who the other party was. Wanda Xin didn't react at all, as if she had already expected this question. She wiped her tears and said, "It's all my fault. Chiu Tong is usually a very opinionated person. She knows that she has an extraordinary identity, but she doesn't want to use her father's identity to show off. Other than when she was young, she has been alone since she started school and worked. No one knows that she is the daughter of the Zhang family. She said that an ordinary person doesn't have a reason to be protected, and that she is even more eye-catching. Besides, This is a lawful society, so we never thought that such an accident would happen. After all, there were so many rich people out there, and everyone seemed to have branded bags. Even if they were crazy, they wouldn't openly kidnap and rob people on the streets. The police weren't to be trifled with. Therefore, being kidnapped wasn't a problem for them. Instead, it was meeting these crazy people who were killed for love that was unexpected. Chapter 1104. Hearing this, Xiao Jin curled her lips. It was a good excuse. Ji Mingming's acting skills were not that good. She stared at Wanda Xin with her eyes wide open. God, with such acting skills, if the boss had not said that she was the mastermind, she would not have been able to see through Wanda Xin. It was too scary. Ji Mingming felt a chill run down her spine when she thought about how Zhang Qiudong was treated like her life for so many years. Ji Mingming's ability as an array master had been discovered at a young age, and she had joined the spirit group. Although she had seen many things, most of them were spiritual readers using their abilities to do bad things. Everyone was evil, and she had seen very little scheming. She had also been raised well by the spirit group. It was the first time she had met someone like Wanda Xin. It was not an exaggeration to say that her scalp was numb. Because she knew that her acting skills were not good, she was afraid that Wanda Xin would notice something. She lowered her head and played games on her phone absent-mindedly. It was not that Wanda Xin did not pay attention to them. The reason why she was 2 hours late was because she had investigated everything. The two of them passing by the garbage station at night could actually hear Zhang Qiudong's cry for help. This was not right. She glanced at Xiao Jin and said sadly, "I still don't know the surnames of the two ladies." I was confused for a moment. Xiao Jin said calmly, "My surname is Qiao. Her surname is Ji." "Miss Qiao, Miss Ji," Wanda Xin called out and asked, "I don't think the two of you are from Sujiang." Xiao Jin suddenly laughed. "Yes, we came from the capital. We originally came here to settle some matters and just happened to meet Miss Zhang when we finished. It's all thanks to us going out at night. Otherwise, we wouldn't have met Miss Zhang." Hearing this, Wanda Xin lowered her eyes and a trace of viciousness flashed in her eyes. It was really a coincidence. For a while, no one spoke. Wanda Xin tried her best to look sad. A few of the Zhang family's relatives seemed to have come to take a look, but they had things to do. After knowing that Zhang Qiudong was still being rescued, they could only leave. The butler bought breakfast for them. Xiao Jin did not refuse. After all, she had not eaten breakfast. He and Ji Mingming did not sleep the entire night. The food tasted pretty good. It wasn't until 8 in the morning that the doctor walked out of the emergency room. He was sweating profusely as he said to Wanda Xin, "We've saved her. Fortunately, she's fine. However, because the knife wound damaged her kidneys, it's very likely that there will be repercussions. As for the specifics, we'll have to wait for Miss Zhang to recover." Wanda Xin heaved a sigh of relief as if she had received a life-saving elixir. She couldn't help but fall limp. She was supported by the housekeeper. Her lips were pale and tears were glistening in her eyes. "Lucky, really lucky. My Tonger, where's Tonger? He has just been rescued, so he needs to be sent to the intensive care unit first. If there are no major problems, he can be transferred to the ward later." As they spoke, Zhang Qiudong was wheeled out. Because she had just undergone surgery, her nose was still covered with an oxygen mask. She was now unconscious. There were still some bruises on his face. It seemed like he had been beaten up before. "Tonger!" When Wanda Xin saw Zhang Qiudong, she burst into tears. Her cry seemed to make Zhang Qiudong's eyelashes flutter. Ji Mingming, who was behind her, felt a chill run down her spine. "Oh my God!" Chapter 1105. It was too scary. Her acting skills were too scary. Who would be able to handle it? Seeing that Wanda Xin had followed Zhang Qiudong to the ward, the butler came over to deal with Xiao Jin and Ji Mingming. "Thank you. Mississippi Miss is fine now, but she hasn't woken up yet. If you want to wait for Miss Zhang to wake up, you should let her know who saved her." The butler was kind-hearted and the matter he proposed was exactly what Xiao Jin wanted. She nodded. "Okay, but we still have some things to do in Xujiang City." When Miss Zhang wakes up, you can let us know. Okay, Miss Qiao, please leave your contact information and account number. When Master comes back, we will give you a big gift to thank you. It was necessary to give a big gift to thank her for saving a life. Xiao Jin didn't refuse. After leaving her contact information, she left with Ji Mingming. Ji Mingming was a little confused. Where are we going? Wanda Xin is so scary. Are we not going to do anything? After all, they had saved her. The first time was the first time, but what about the second time? Even if you know that she is the murderer, you have no evidence. Xiao Jin stared at Ji Mingming coldly. I am sure that Wanda Xin didn't interfere on the surface, unless the murderer contacted her. So, we're going to investigate the murderer now. Do you have a way to let us meet the murderer? If it is a special investigation, I can. As a special department, they had this kind of power. Using the channel, they soon met the murderer who hurt Zhang Qiudong. Wei Xiaojia. To be honest, this person's looks were not bad. Otherwise, Zhang Qiudong would not have taken a fancy to him. His face was thin and long, and his facial features were somewhat dull. He had known Zhang Qiudong since university, and he had been pestering Zhang Qiudong. He had finally caught up with her, but he was exposed too quickly. His insatiable greed angered Zhang Qiudong's friends. When he saw two girls who he had never met before, he was a little surprised. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Who are you?" Xiao Jin stared at him for a while and calculated his fate. After a while, she curled her lips. I understand. Wei Xiaojia was creeped out by her stare. Ji Mingming was also a little confused. What the fuck? The big boss knew the ins and outs of the matter with just one look. This was a special investigation, so there were no surveillance cameras or wiretaps. With Xiao Jin around, he was not afraid. She looked at Wei Xiaojia with a smile and suddenly said, "How much money did that number transfer to your parents?" Hurting someone is not a small matter. The person you hurt is the daughter of the richest man in Sujiang City. You know that with the other party's status, they will definitely make you beg for death. You will be in jail for at least 10 years. When you come out after 10 years, you will be a university student. Because of that, your life will be ruined because of being in jail. The Zhang family will not let you stay in Sujiang City. Wei Xiaojia's face began to twitch when he heard the words, "How much money?" His mental fortitude was strong when it came to killing people, but this time his acting was not very good. He lowered his head and avoided the question. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't know, but I know. Xiao Jin was still smiling faintly. You're good at acting. You pretended to have a falling out with your family. That person gave you 10 million yuan and promised to immigrate your parents to Cherry Blossom. When you come out, you can also go to Cherry Blossom to reunite with your parents. There, the Zhang family can't control you. However, the other party wanted Zhang Qiudong to die. Now that Zhang Qiudong is not dead and you have been arrested, do you think the other party will really care about you? Chapter 1106. Wei Xiaojia lowered his head, his pupils constricting. Impossible. He had never told anyone about this. Even his parents were not sure. How did this person in front of him know everything? She did not even ask anything when she came in. How did she know the whole story with just a few glances? Actually, you don't have much information because you don't even know who sent you the money. You only know that the other party wants Zhang Qiudong dead. You knew that her family wasn't simple, but you didn't expect her to be the daughter of the Zhang family. In fact, you regretted it. You knew that even if you exposed the person who transferred the money, it would be useless. You had no evidence. The money was transferred to you through a special channel. The source of the money couldn't be found on the market. The other party's hands and feet were much cleaner and more professional than yours. You're just a knife user, but it's a pity that you didn't use it well enough. If you don't expose it, at least your parents can spend the money. You won't lose out even if you go to jail for 10 years. You might even get additional compensation. Ji Mingming, damn, this big shot is awesome. Damn. The matter was clear in just a few sentences. Wasn't it obvious who the person who sent the money was? It was Wanda Xin. Wanda Xin's acting skills were superb. How could she not have some tricks up her sleeves? It would be impossible to find out the source of the money now, but it would be different if someone else intervened. No matter what she said, She had to say it herself before someone else would do it. The person who did it, but if they were implicated in the murder case, would the other party help Wanda Sheen hide it? Of course, Wanda Sheen would have considered this. Things would eventually be exposed. She definitely had a way to protect herself. Wei Xiaojia's body began to tremble. From the purpose to his scheme, the other party had revealed everything clearly. It was as if she could read his mind. But how did she know? Was she a criminal psychologist sent by the police? She had actually guessed the thoughts of others so clearly. But you have to know that you're not the only one who knows that your parents took the money and are going to Sakura Island. Do you think your own life is more important or your parents' lives? I can guarantee you that the person who killed Zhang Xiaodong will be dealt with cleanly. Your parents will most likely not be able to escape. As for you, a prisoner, dying in prison is a very normal thing. Don't you think so? Xiao Jin's words made Wei Xiaojia's hair stand on end. He raised his head abruptly and looked at Xiao Jin in horror. He just didn't think of this point. He didn't think that in addition to killing Zhang Xiaodong, the other party also wanted to kill them to silence them. Ji Mingming also reacted at this moment and widened her eyes. That's right. If Zhang Xiaodong is dead, there will be nothing to worry about. Then wouldn't the murderers who made the deal become a worry? You don't know the other party, so they can pretend to kill your family by accident and cut off all the clues. Dead people tell no tales. Wei Xiaojia was so frightened by this sentence that he trembled. At this moment, he couldn't care less. Tears immediately flowed out. I didn't do it on purpose. I also regret it very much. I regret it now. Please save me. Save my parents, Xiao Jin said. Today's conversation will not be known by anyone. If you want to save yourself, immediately report this key information to the police. The rest will be investigated by others. You just have to wait for the news. Where were my parents? Xiao Jin said with a smile. You did something wrong. Your parents are innocent. At most, they won't get the money. You just have to pay the price. Chapter 11:07. When they came out of the police station, Xiao Jin and the rest knew that Wei Xiaojia would confess to the police. Ji Mingming was still a little confused. Did he want to kill Zhang Xiaodong because he was paid, or did he want to kill her? Both. He's the most impulsive kind. When he approached Zhang Xiaodong, he was already investigated. Ji Mingming was stunned. Xiao Jin looked at her. With Zhang Xiaodong's status, how could she be afraid of being pestered? With her stepmother's means, Zhang Xiaodong could make Wei Xiaojia disappear completely. Why do you think Wanda Sheen watched Zhang Xiaodong be pestered? Ji Mingming was speechless. Fuck, that was awesome. Xiao Jin was awesome, but it also proved that Wanda Sheen was really scary. She had already planned this. Murder of love, what a perfect factor. Wei Xiaojia probably had a criminal record, so his impulsive murder of love would not be suspected. Then I still don't understand. Wanda Sheen could pretend that she didn't know anything. Why did she use money to provoke Wei Xiaojia? Without a reason, Wei Xiaojia might not have killed her. He was jealous because Zhang Xiaodong dumped him first. He probably wanted to do something impulsive, but he might not have dared to kill her. He just received a message from Wanda Sheen and was completely blinded by the 10 million yuan. After all, Wanda Sheen promised to send him abroad after the matter was done. She even transferred 10 million yuan first. Wei Xiaojia was impulsive and stupid. It was too easy for him to take the bait. Ji Mingming suddenly understood and said, Why are you involved in this matter? Xiao Jin sked. If it weren't for Zhang Xiaodong's special status, I wouldn't have encountered such a thing. Since I'm involved, I'll do it to the end. She had to think of a way. At least, she couldn't let Zhang Xiaodong be here. If her stepmother wasn't dealt with quickly, Zhang Xiaodong's life would be in danger. Not long after, the housekeeper called and said that Zhang Xiaodong had woken up. She knew about her savior and wanted to see them. Xiao Jin agreed. When she went, she received a call from Song Yanqing. Did something happen to you in Xujiang? This was not an investigation, but a sudden premonition. It was also in Xujiang City, so he guessed that it had something to do with Xiao Jin. Yes, I found a new array point, so I'll be delayed for a while. Also, I need your help. She told him about Wanda Sheen and asked, How do you think we should solve this? Song Yanqing smiled. His voice was soft, but the words he said were chilling. Since some things have been done, there is no need to worry about whether it is a normal method. We are not ordinary people, so there is no need to use ordinary methods. Since she has done it, it is enough to let her say it herself. Xiao Jin pursed his lips and thought that it was true since she had already intervened to this extent. Zhang Xiaodong's father would probably arrive home at night. Since that was the case, it was better to let him see it with his own eyes. With an idea in mind, she replied, "All right." Song Yanqing couldn't hide his smile. "Looks like you're going to meet another rich woman." He knew that among the group of people that Xiao Jin had raised, Guo Julian had inherited a few hundred million. The people that she had found after her were all richer than the last. He felt that something was off. Xiao Jin sighed and said, "It's not my money. I have you, and that is enough." Since there was no distinction between them now, Xiao Jin had Song Yanqing. Wouldn't that cancel out hundreds of Zhang Xiaodong? When Song Yanqing heard this, his smile deepened. He sounded very happy. "Yes, what's mine is yours." Chapter 1108. After talking to Song Yanqing, Xiao Jin hung up the phone. Ji Mingming sighed. "Boyfriend?" Xiao Jin nodded. Ji Mingming looked at her. "I'm envious of you and happy for you." She found a compatible one. After all, they knew about Song Yanqing. Of course, she was worthy of Xiao Jin. Talking to Song Yanqing was a rare moment of relaxation. After all, the Rakshasa realm appeared above her head. However, there were some things that were useless even if you were anxious. The breakthrough of the Rakshasa realm was not now. She had to find her remaining array points step by step. There were two more. There were two more burial pits that had not appeared. Everything seemed to be about to open. Xiao Jin sighed. When they arrived at the hospital, it was already daytime. Wanda Xin changed her clothes and stayed by Zhang Xiaodong's side. Zhang Xiaodong's face was full of injuries, but her eyes were particularly bright. When she saw Xiao Jin, her eyes widened as if she was looking forward to it. She opened her mouth to Xiao Jin. Her surname is Qiao. Wanda Xin reminded her in a low voice. The other one is Miss Ji. Zhang Xiaodong looked at Xiao Jin with a grateful expression. Miss Qiao, Miss Ji. Her voice was smooth, but she was a little weak, so she sounded weak. Xiao Jin nodded and smiled. Are you better? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Zhang Xiaodong blinked and looked at her. I'm fine. I'm fine. Except for the pain sometimes and the fact that she kept thinking about being stabbed. She felt okay now. After all, the matter was over. She survived. This was the greatest blessing. Have a good rest. Xiao Jin was not very familiar with her, so they did not talk much. She only asked Zhang Xiaodong to have a good rest. She and Ji Mingming found an excuse to leave. You're leaving just like that? She received news from the police station. When Wei Xiaoji's matter was reported, the police immediately knew that it was a big matter. They were not in a hurry to inform Wanda Xin. As Zhang Xiaodong's father was still on the plane and could not be contacted, they began to investigate on their own. It's fine. This matter will end tonight. Xiao Jin let a light breath. She didn't want to waste too much time here, mainly because she wanted to go back and see Song Yanqing. Perhaps it was because of their strong sense of foreboding. At this time, Xiao Jin only wanted to spend as much time as possible with Song Yanqing. For some things, one had to think of the worst possible outcome. If there was really no way to salvage the situation, she and Song Yanqing would probably only be together for a short while. After Wanda Xin and the others left, Zhang Xiaodong's body was weak, and she fell into a deep sleep in the afternoon. It was almost nighttime again. After dinner, she received news that Zhang Xiaodong's father's flight was delayed and would arrive in the country in about an hour. He asked her to wait at the hospital first. She looked at Zhang Xiaodong, who was lying on the hospital bed. She didn't know why, but she suddenly had a strong desire to confide in her. It was as if there was a thought urging her to tell her opinion of Zhang Xiaodong. This thought was too logical. For a moment, she only felt that something was wrong. Her mouth opened and closed, and she began to say terrible things. I've always liked you. You grew up by my side. How can a mother not like you? Even if there are no feelings, I've always treated you as my daughter for more than 10 years. She gently wiped her tears and looked at Zhang Qiutong, who was unconscious on the bed. She had been given a sleeping injection mainly to let her sleep soundly. Wanda Xin was not afraid that she would wake up. Chapter 1109. But how can there be so many ifs in this world? Your father still can't see your mother. I've been married to him for so many years. What did I want? He's very good to me, but he would mention your mother from time to time. There's no woman who doesn't mind. Later on, I gave birth to your brother. After all, apart from you and your brother, I should have a share of the Zhang family's assets. Your father should know how much I've helped him all these years. I didn't expect him to be so ruthless. He left all his assets to you, but I didn't have a single cent after all these years. My son deserves what he has. What about me? Her eyes were filled with hatred. I'm younger than him. Who knows when he'll die in front of me? He didn't even leave anything for me. You're not that outstanding. It's a problem whether you can control the Zhang family in the future. I've done my best for the Zhang family for so many years. How can you get half of the assets without doing anything? Wei Xiaoji is a good person, right? That was my arrangement. If you continue to date him honestly, you'd at most suffer a little after marrying him. But you had to break up with him to anger him. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many problems. As she spoke, she felt that something was wrong. She couldn't control herself at all. These were all her thoughts. It was so simple and crude as she said it word by word. She felt the hair on her back stand up. When she felt that something was wrong, she turned around in a panic. Zhang Qiutong's father, Zhang Chenhua, was with a group of doctors and housekeepers. They looked at her in disbelief. When they came in, they didn't make a sound. She didn't hear anything at all. That was impossible. Wanda Xin screamed subconsciously. She felt that she had finally let go of her control. Her mouth trembled as she shouted, "Hubby, you, aren't you?" Wasn't an hour before he arrived. At this moment, she couldn't care less about who told her the news. The truth was right in front of her eyes. Zhang Chenhua was back and heard her talking to herself. The good image she had maintained for so many years as a good wife and mother had all collapsed in an instant. It was all because of an inexplicable confession. She didn't want to say it at all. How could such a vigilant person like her expose her purpose in the ward so easily? This is not right, not right. Unfortunately, it was too late. Zhang Chenhua pointed at her and stammered, You were the one behind Qiutong's incident. Just because of half of his assets? Just because of half of his assets? Are you even human, Wanda Xin? That's your daughter, the daughter you raised for more than 10 years. Even if you don't think about her, why don't you ask her if she will use that half of her assets to show filial piety to you in the future? These words struck Wanda Xin's mind like a bolt of lightning. She suddenly remembered her father's words when she was young. De Xian, I named you De Xian not because I want you to be talented in both art and virtue, but because I want you to have a good moral character. You don't have to have a warm personality, but a good moral character is something that everyone should have. Wanda Xin, who was supposed to be asleep on the hospital bed, had a teardrop at the corner of her eye. She didn't know when she woke up, but she heard her stepmother's words clearly. Actually, she shouldn't be a stepmother. She was raised by Wanda Xin since she was young. Even if they weren't biological, there was no doubt that they were mother and daughter. She had never doubted her mother. Chapter 1110. A stepmother killing her own stepdaughter was not something pleasant to hear, especially for a special family like Zhang Qiutong's. If the news was exposed, it could be imagined how big the news would be. After all, they had been husband and wife for more than 10 years. Zhang Qiutong's father had feelings for Wanda Xin. He just couldn't believe it at all and realized that Wanda Xin couldn't tolerate Zhang Qiutong after all. The matter still needed to be investigated, but he didn't intend to go further. He just said it clearly. Stay abroad for the rest of your life. Don't come back. Our son is both yours and mine. Do you want him to stay by my side to study, or do you want to take him away? It's up to you. I won't leave out anything that should be left to him. A stepmother wanted to kill her daughter. No matter how stupid he was, he couldn't let Wanda Xin continue to stay in the Zhang family. He didn't kill her in the end because Zhang Qiudong didn't die. If Zhang Qiudong died, then this matter would obviously not be settled. Wanda Xin knew that she was guilty in her heart. She didn't say anything and left the Zhang family that night. The follow-up matter would naturally be pushed away Xiaojia. Someone should pay the main responsibility for this matter. Ji Mingming also received the news, which proved that this matter was completed. She was just a little puzzled. Why don't Zhang Qiudong's father send Wanda Xin to prison? His daughter almost died. She didn't die, did she? Qiao Jin said lightly. The relationship between him and Wanda Xin for more than 10 years is not fake. After all, he couldn't do it. Ji Mingming spat. If anyone kills my daughter, I will definitely kill their whole family. Wanda Xin is his wife. He is too kind. She didn't understand. In fact, Qiao Jin didn't understand either. But it didn't matter if he didn't understand. His purpose was to ensure that Zhang Qiudong was fine. Wanda Xin couldn't do anything to Zhang Qiudong. As for the follow-up matter, if Zhang Qiudong's father didn't get rid of Wanda Xin, if there were any accidents in the future, Zhang Qiudong's father should pay the price. He should know better than anyone the principle of letting the tiger go back to the mountain. Even if he couldn't go back home, as long as Wanda Xin still missed him, there would be a chance to make a move sooner or later. If Zhang Qiudong didn't have any connections, they were actually just strangers who didn't know each other. Xiao Jin didn't care too much about strangers, but thinking that Zhang Qiudong's father didn't handle things cleanly, he was afraid that there would be trouble in the future. Xiao Jin thought for a moment and called Mo Jiang. I found another person. This person's identity is rather special. She's currently in Xujiang City. Her name is Zhang Qiudong, and she's the daughter of the richest man there. Mo Jiang was originally lazing around at home, but when he heard this, he immediately perked up. The daughter of the richest man? Even if he wasn't the richest man in the country, being the richest man in a city was already a big deal. Mo Jiang was elated at that time. Look at you. How did you manage to find someone who's getting richer and richer? Guo Julian, this little rich lady, was already generous enough. Qiao Jin even found the daughter of the richest man. It was simply too surprising. She's not very safe, so she can't stay by her father's side. Qiao Jin thought for a moment and said, I'm not very familiar with the other party, so I can't make this request. Come to Xujiang City. No matter what method you use, just let her go to the capital and stay by your side. That's not a problem. She was still good at kidnapping people. Didn't she easily cheat Fan Zhaoyao away in the past? Of course, Zhang Qiudong wasn't Fan Zhaoyao, but she was a fair, rich, and beautiful lady who was mesmerized by a phoenix man. She had just suffered psychological trauma, so her vigilance was probably not strong. Chapter 11:11. After everything is done, Qiao Jin returns to the capital. When she returns to the Mu family, she looks up at the sky. The sky is still blue. In recent years, the atmosphere in the capital looks much better than before. If it weren't for the matter of the Luosha world, the world would still be running normally. No one would realize that something terrible is about to happen. There are 2 more matrix points. If they can't be found, it will be a big problem. The remaining 2 corresponding burial pits haven't appeared yet, which means that the time is not up yet, but it will be soon. Some things can't be hidden sooner or later. After returning to the Mu family, she doesn't come back for 2 days. She just makes a simple phone call. When she comes home, Xiao Fei scolds her. I can't control you now. You marry into the Song family as soon as possible. I think only the Lord Song can control you a little. Muzillian says sarcastically, he can control her, but do you think Brother Yanqing is the kind of person who will control her? Qiao Jin says helplessly, I just have to deal with something recently. She glances at Xiao Fei and then at Muzillian. It's just the beginning of the new year, but everyone is very busy. Mu Zhiming takes Mu Qiji to visit business partners. The old man also has his own social circle. There seem to be only a few idle people in the family. Qiao Jin looks at them and feels a little emotional. How peaceful it is to look at all this. 10,000 years ago, she didn't experience such an ordinary family life. 10,000 years later, this time is too short. After being scolded by Xiao Fei, she doesn't say anything. When she goes upstairs, she suddenly turns to look at Xiao Fei. Fei. Xiao Fei says, "Ah," and then Xiao Jin says, "If one day I disappear completely, don't miss me. Live your life well." Xiao Fei, the mobile phone in her hand, falls to the ground. "What did you say? What are you talking about?" Xiao Fei was frightened by her words. "What are you going to do? How did you disappear?" Xiao Jin's world was already strange enough. Now that Xiao Jin said this, Xiao Fei had an ominous premonition. Her eyes immediately turned red. Even the frivolous Musilian was startled and sat up straight. "What are you going to do?" It sounded like his last words. Xiao Jin said indifferently, "I'm just saying it casually. It's just a possibility. Don't think too much about it. Maybe nothing will happen." This meant that something was about to happen. Musilian was stunned. Xiao Fei burst into tears. "What are you going to do?" Seeing Xiao Fei crying, Xiao Jin had an indescribable feeling in his heart. But this was her personality. She couldn't say anything that was too certain. She could disappear forever in order to stop the Rakshasa world. Even if he said something to comfort Xiao Fei now, if she really disappeared, Xiao Fei would still be sad and desperate. It was better to have some expectations. But he couldn't bear to see Xiao Fei so sad. "Don't cry. I'm just saying it casually." Can some words be said casually? Xiao Fei sniffled and looked at Xiao Jin. She felt that something was wrong. Xiao Jin's tone just now didn't sound like he was saying his last words. But what would happen to Xiao Jin? Xiao Jin didn't say anything, but Xiao Fei was scared to tears. When Mu Jinming came back at night, she told him about it. Mu Jinming and Mu Qiji frowned. "She really said that?" Chapter 11-12. How could it be fake? I felt that something was wrong at the time, but she refused to tell me the details. Xiao Fei's eyes were still filled with tears. What do you think she's going to do? Why did this matter sound so serious? There was even a possibility that she might disappear forever. Wasn't that digging her heart out? The men from a Mu family looked at each other, but they didn't know what Xiao Jin was going to do. After all, the world she lived in was indeed different from ordinary people. Sometimes, they couldn't predict what she would do. Mu Jinming could only comfort Xiao Fei first. She knows what she's doing. It was because of this that he said this sentence as if he was giving Xiao Fei a heads up in advance. Of course, this made people have a bad feeling in their hearts. Xiao Fei immediately cried again. Mu Jinming, in the end, they still couldn't come to a conclusion. When they asked Xiao Jin said that it was fine. She only said that there were many possibilities, and this kind of danger couldn't be ruled out. Regardless of this point, life still had to go on. The lives of ordinary people wouldn't change at all. During this week, Xiao Jin also stayed at home, waiting for the spirit team to continue to send news about the burial pit. Unexpectedly, Hiyao came to find her first. She hadn't seen Hiyao for a while, but she also received a New Year's greeting from Hiyao over the phone. Recently, Hiyao had been very busy. Now, she had to take the time to meet Xiao Jin. It was about the huge whirlpool that had recently appeared in the Pacific Ocean. This matter was getting more and more intense. Instead of disappearing, the whirlpool was gradually expanding. All the detectors, radars, and all kinds of instruments around it would malfunction. Ships within 100 miles would be attracted to it, unless they were investigating from high up in the sky. Now, no one dared to go near that place. The spiritual psychics instinctively felt that something was wrong. The spirit team abroad had already sent news back, asking the people in the country to investigate what this strange, huge whirlpool represented. It's about the vortex. You should have seen the news on the internet recently, right? There was an unconcealable tiredness on Hiyao's brows, a clear indication of how busy they had been. Actually, it's far more serious than what the internet says. According to the people who found the vortex when it first appeared, they heard a unique sound when they approached the vortex. It was inaudible to human ears, but it was like the sound directly appeared in one's brain. It was very stimulating and reminded one of the scariest things in one's heart. We can't get close to the vortex anymore. The pilots observing from above will hear this sound. It's a particularly strong hint. Those who hear it will not be able to suppress the darkness in their hearts, and they will be reminded of the saddest things in their lives. Diao looked at Xiao Jin expectantly. So I'm here to ask you, do you know anything about this vortex? Xiao Jin had always been resourceful, so He Yao was used to coming to her whenever she had a problem. Xiao Jin indeed knew. She looked at He Yao and slowly smiled. Actually, you don't have to care about it, and you don't have to go near it. He Yao was a little puzzled. We will definitely observe such a strange and dangerous place. Are we really not going to care about it? Because you can't do anything about it. Xiao Jin's words made He Yao's heart skip a beat. What do you mean by that? Xiao Jin said, some things involve too many things that you can no longer control. I could tell you what it is. It's the junction, the entrance to another world. Chapter 11:13. Yao's eyes widened in shock. The matter of being a spiritual reader was still a fantasy, but she had never thought of such a terrifying thought as another world. Even though the scientists had always been suspicious, it was clear that the world they suspected wasn't in existence like the Rakshasa world. You can't pass through that world, and they can't pass through, but they will appear at a certain time. Once they arrive, this world will be plunged into misery and suffering, and all civilization will cease to exist. Hiao didn't know what to say when he explained the terrifying consequences in two simple sentences. That world is the Rakshasa world. Perhaps in a few months, or even sooner, the entrance at the border will open and countless demons will surge over. You can't do anything about it. Then we can't just stand by and watch. Hiao was anxious. If what you said is true, it'll be the end of the world. Xiao Jin sighed slightly. The reason why I can't rush is because I haven't found some key things yet. This involves the key to sealing off the Rakshasa world. I will deal with this matter, but for now, I can say that you can't do anything about it. Because the things on the other side can't come over, you'd better not court death. I don't want you to open the entrance prematurely because of some inexplicable experiment while I'm waiting for the right time. After watching too many movies with Xiao Fei, some ideas were naturally more dangerous. Because this did seem like something humans would do. When Hiao heard this, how could she not understand what he meant? She carefully probed. You mean there won't be any danger now, but we can't do anything about it? You're already dealing with it? Xiao Jin nodded. Seeing Xiao Jin nod, Hiao's heart gradually relaxed. For some reason, she trusted Xiao Jin, as if as long as Xiao Jin was here, nothing would happen even if the sky collapsed. She could handle it. But then, Hiao suddenly felt that her thoughts were too shameless. Actually, what did all this have to do with her? She didn't have to sacrifice for them. It was one thing for her to bear it, but it was another thing for her to bear it. Fortunately, Xiao Jin didn't say much. With the answer to this question in mind, Hiao nervously returned to the spirit group. Hiao's answer soon caused an uproar. That vortex was actually the entrance to another world? Xiao Jin clearly knew that Hiao would report back to her, but she didn't stop her. This news spread very quickly, and almost everyone in the spirit group knew about it. However, the news was kept secret. It was fine if they knew about it, but they absolutely couldn't let ordinary people know about it. Otherwise, it would be a panic before the end of the world. Panic was indeed a panic, but the spirit group had to hold the line. Hiao had brought back that Xiao Jin knew that it was another world. She was also preparing a way to deal with it, so it was best for the spirit group not to do anything unnecessary. After all, Xiao Jin's prestige in the spirit group was enough, even if she wasn't a member of the spirit group. Not long after, the news reached Song Yanqing's ears. He thought of the twists and turns and met with Xiao Jin. There were indeed a lot of things to do recently. Even if the end of the world was coming, they still had things to deal with. When he saw Xiao Jin, he just patted her head and said, "Don't think too much. Everything will be fine." But whether it would be fine or not, they all knew in their hearts. Chapter 11:14. The same thing had happened 10,000 years ago. Xiao Jin sat there, still smiling. There was no panic. He just smiled at Song Yanqing. I know what you mean. I just think that the Rakshasa world is just like that. I just want to know, what did you do 10,000 years ago? What price did he pay to go to the Rakshasa world? He said that there was no way, and opening the entrance was the only hope. He saw countless endings, but there was always a way to solve things. The one that Song Yanqing could not see was the final ending. It was precisely because he could not see it that the ending must be in an unimaginable way. He must have seen a corner of it, which was why he left it until 10,000 years later. Even she herself knew about it. Otherwise, she would not have left 9 array points. She had set up an escape route early in the morning, which had something to do with the memories she had really lost. Song Yanqing's eyes were still as gentle as ever. He looked at her with tenderness like water. Actually, I'm not too sure either. I always feel that what happened back then is very vague. He did not completely integrate the memories from 10,000 years ago. Just like Xiao Jin, there was a blank space in their memories. This blank space involved everything. Song Yanqing and she both knew that everything was about to come to an end. After the two of them finished talking, they originally planned to have fun for a while, but perhaps they could not wait any longer. Xiao Jin received a message from Ji Mengmeng. Another corpse burial pit has appeared. Her voice was filled with excitement at this moment, and there was a different kind of gnashing of teeth. You can't believe it. It's something that only animals can do. Ji Mengmeng was still so angry, even though she had seen so many corpse burial pits before. This meant that the new corpse burial pit must be very shocking and despairing. After Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing finished talking, they immediately rushed to the airport. When Xiao Jin saw the new corpse burial pit this time, he knew why Ji Mengmeng was so angry. Because it was indeed extremely tragic. That scene would definitely make people's hearts jump. This time, the people who died inside were not twisted humans. They were all children's bones. They were all children. There were more than 10,000 of them. When Xiao Jin saw this, his eyelids twitched. Just as she had expected, the last burial pit was filled with tens of thousands of children, except for those of spiritual readers. This could no longer be described as a beast. Mo Fei Huan. He had completely broken away from the category of humans. Xiao Jin even had reason to believe that he was already a mutant of the Rakshasa realm. He had made so many deals with the Rakshasa realm, so how could he still maintain his complete humanity? When the inspectors were cleaning up the children's skeletons, those who were more emotional could not bear to see this scene. They were weeping as they cleaned up. Small skeletons were buried in this pit. Perhaps they hadn't had the chance to enjoy life when they were just born, or perhaps they had already suffered a lot in the mortal world and didn't expect to be tortured like this after death. Ji Mengmeng said with a trembling voice, "The oldest child here is no more than 10 years old. Tens of thousands of corpses. Who knew how many years it had taken to collect them, or rather, how long it had taken to find these children? It was too cruel." Xiao Jin was also a little silent. She slowly exhaled. It was in this corpse burial pit that she found a strange thing. Formation point. The formation point could appear in places other than the human body. Chapter 11:15. She did not expect that there would be a formation point here. That formation point was being suppressed by layers upon layers of bones. If not for Xiao Jin's powerful sensing ability, he would not have been able to sense its existence. The moment he summoned it, the formation point spun in midair and actually charged straight into Xiao Jin's body. This time, the formation point was not like before when it was subdued by Xiao Jin. Instead, it was like a part of Xiao Jin's body. When it crashed into his body, Xiao Jin heard a sky full of cries, but it was like the chanting of the great Tao. All kinds of overlapping, like a scene of heaven and hell coexisting. It was unbelievable. This was the 8th formation point. But the moment the formation point crashed into his body, Xiao Jin finally understood. There were indeed 9 formation points, but there were no 9 formation points in the first place. Because the 9th formation point was herself. When the last formation point was found, It produced a change in Xiao Jin's body, bringing back a part of Xiao Jin's damaged memories. At the same time, far away in the imperial capital, Imo Jiang and the others felt their hearts beating strangely, as if they were not calm. Different from the earth-shattering scene Xiao Jin had imagined, these 9 formation points, just like what he had seen before, peacefully disappeared and finally peacefully gathered again. Guo Julian and the others did not even feel any changes in their bodies. They only felt slightly confused, as if their hearts were empty, but this feeling was fleeting. The other 7 formation points surged towards Xiao Jin like balls of flowing light. It was as simple as when Xiao Jin had subdued those formation points. Origin formation, born in heaven and earth, returned to heaven and earth. This was a strange formation, so strange that Xiao Jin did not even know its meaning, but he understood its function. It could lock down everything that had happened in the past, and could also restore everything clearly. However, this formation did not lock Xiao Jin's memories. When the 9 formation points were combined into one, the devouring array suddenly shook. A huge purple butterfly appeared in the sky. It seemed to let out a clear cry, and its huge body pointed in a direction. All of this happened right under Xiao Jin's nose, but no one else could see it clearly. Ji Mingming glanced at Xiao Jin and said, "Big Boss Xiao, what are you thinking about?" Xiao Jin suddenly woke up. "I need to go somewhere." The origin array didn't lock up her memories, but converged towards the final direction. Luoshao world. She held the key to the Rakshasa realm, and the origin array was the key. However, one had to pay a huge price to go to the Rakshasa realm. Although he did not know why, Xiao Jin already felt that the answer to everything was at the entrance of the border. Ji Mingming was a little confused. "Where are you going?" Xiao Jin said, "The border." She left behind these 2 words, and her figure completely disappeared. She was about to get the answer. Because there was no time, she directly teleported over. The last demonic spiritual seed in her hand paid the price, and she arrived above the whirlpool of the Pacific Ocean. When she appeared, there was a calm ocean in front of her. If not for the huge whirlpool directly in front of her, and the abyss below was unfathomable, perhaps this would be a rare spectacle. She suddenly appeared on the surface of the ocean, but because all the instruments here would malfunction and only a few could work in the sky, they could not get close, so no one would discover her. Chapter 11:16. When she calmly looked at the huge whirlpool, the black whirlpool was like the huge mouth of a monster. In front of this huge whirlpool, humans would naturally feel powerless. It was as if they were facing something terrifying. She could even imagine what terrifying things would surge out from behind the whirlpool. As she approached, the vibration of the devourer became more obvious. The law array point jumped out from her body. For the first time, the huge disc said something that did not conform to the law. "You have to go in." It was an affirmative sentence, not a question. Xiao Jin glanced at it. The law had its own consciousness. Of course, it did not completely belong to Xiao Jin. It could choose whether to go or not. However, the array point could not form a connection with the world on the other side. The disc suddenly expanded above the whirlpool, covering the huge whirlpool. She suddenly felt a pulling sensation in her mind. The devourer seemed to be frantically trying to go over. It clearly did not have such fluctuations 10,000 years ago. The devourer brought her body closer to the whirlpool step by step. The shocking space-tearing ability had begun to appear. It was another world, a world that humans could not go to. If they went, they would die. She could not pay any price, and there was no space array point. She should not go over. However, she felt that she had to go over. The devourer also had to go over. It was she who wanted to go over. In an instant, it was as if the long river of time had passed in her mind. Some things disappeared very quickly. The words on the disc changed again. "Go. You should know." The law was guarding there. It had no intention of leaving. It enveloped the entire whirlpool as if it was the last guardian. Xiao Jin nodded and looked at the depths of the whirlpool. The ocean was screaming. Because of the high-speed rotation, the vibrations caused by it seemed like something was issuing a huge threat through the curtain of the ocean. No one could survive inside. If they entered the whirlpool, they would be torn into pieces in the blink of an eye. She knew that she should not go, but she knew that she would be fine. Someone had already paid the price for her. She blinked, then smiled softly and plunged into the depths of the whirlpool. She was too small. In comparison, the human body was like a speck of dust. She couldn't cause any vibrations. After entering, the vortex didn't seem to have even the slightest ripple. It was still spinning. Under the ocean, there seemed to be all kinds of fish swimming by the side of the whirlpool from time to time. They seemed to be unaffected, and the weather was as usual. No one noticed what was wrong, just as no one would have thought that someone had entered another world through the vortex. Thousands of miles away, Song Yanqing, who was in the middle of a discussion, suddenly froze when he sensed that something was wrong. His face was still the same, but the light in his eyes dimmed in an instant. Then, he suddenly fell on the table, as if he had fainted. "Lord Song, young Master Song? Lord Song, what's wrong? What's wrong with you?" The people around him screamed in horror. No one had expected that Song Yanqing would suddenly faint. This was something that had not happened for a long time. Or rather, even if his body was weak in the past, he had never suddenly fainted. Chapter 11:17. There was only darkness in front of her. No, that's not right. To be more precise, Xiao Jin felt that she didn't have a human body. She was like duckweed, or perhaps she was like something else. She seemed to be in a relaxed state, floating in this deep and boundless space. Dark, oppressive, cold. It was the color of this place. This was different from what Xiao Jin imagined. She passed through the entrance of the space, and nothing painful happened. The Rakshasa world was also very different from what she imagined. Here, there were no demons that blotted out the sky as she imagined. It was unbelievably quiet. There was no color in the surroundings, only pure darkness, as if it was covered in a thick fog. Only some different shadows occasionally flashed by. Xiao Jin felt that she wasn't like a human at the moment. She could see everything around her, but she also found that she couldn't seem to see herself. She didn't know what state she was in. She felt that as she entered the Rakshasa world, when she stayed here, there would always be some fragmented fragments in her mind. The fragmented memories seemed to be slowly piecing together. She didn't know how long she had been floating in this silent and dark world. If it were someone else, they would feel oppressed, suffocated, or even panicked in a few minutes. She just felt a little confused. There was no aura of the array points on her body, and even the devouring force had disappeared. She didn't know where she was floating to. Although the surrounding scenery was unchanged, she felt that she was moving. She kept moving forward. After some time, she felt a low roar coming from around her. It seemed to be the ferocious roar of a demon. She seemed to look up. A huge demon's body slid over her. It didn't see her and went straight past. If it weren't for this demon, she wouldn't even feel any aura or color in this world. And the demon didn't seem to see her. There was an even worse situation. Xiao Jin didn't have a body. She was just a consciousness. Her consciousness came to the Rakshasa world. A faint sigh came from a distant place, bringing with it emptiness. Quiet, cold, and hoarse like 10,000 years ago. Xiao Jin's mind stirred, and he felt his vision suddenly widen. A person suddenly appeared in front of him. To be exact, it was the silhouette of a person. When the silhouette reached out to her, she felt that she had a physical body. She subconsciously reached out and saw her own hand. In the dark environment, she was like a gathering of starlight. Her entire body was emitting a moving radiance as she appeared bit by bit. In such a dark world, her appearance was abrupt and outrageous. That bright color could almost destroy the surrounding darkness. A hand reached out from the rolling fog. The hand looked like it was made of white bones, and it was frightening. However, the moment it came into contact with Xiao Jin, it gradually regained its former color. The fingers were long and slender, white like jade, and the joints were clearly defined. It was Song Yanqing's hand. When he appeared from the thick fog, his original form could not be seen clearly, but when he came into contact with Xiao Jin, he returned to his original appearance. He looked at her, as if he had been longing for her for 10,000 years. His eyes were only on her. He sighed slightly, and there was a hoarse longing. You still came, after an unknown amount of time, so long that his concept of time was blurred. She still appeared. Chapter 11:18. Song Yanqing? She blinked, but she realized that his body would sometimes turn into white bones, and the moment she looked at him, it would instantly recover. Such a change should be somewhat painful, but he didn't even blink. She touched his face. It was cold, but real. She thought of the Song Yanqing in the modern world and was a little puzzled. As if seeing through her thoughts, Song Yanqing said softly, "That's also me. My consciousness will sometimes go out, but when I'm resting over there, I have to come back. In that world, I can feel the existence of this world, and my memories will be blurry. Only here, I'm complete." Because his true consciousness was in the Rakshasa world. He looked up at Xiao Jin with a smile. He was still as gentle as ever, as calm and elegant as if he could amaze the years. "I just missed you too much." Because he missed her too much, he still used a powerful thought to create his own identity in that world, even though he had already been tortured. His body had long dissipated completely, and he was only a consciousness now. When Song Yanqing was awake, he was Song Yanqing, but he couldn't replace the memories of the Rakshasa world. Therefore, the Song Yanqing in the modern world was him, and the one here was also him. It was just that he was more complete and had all the memories. Xiao Jin instantly understood. In other words, her awakening wasn't a coincidence. Song Yanqing knew that she had been resurrected, so he created the same identity to wait for him in the modern world. However, there were some things that he couldn't control. His ability to use was already at its limit, and this was enough to consign him to eternal damnation. What exactly did you see during the sacrifice 10,000 years ago? Xiao Jin had always wanted to ask this question. Now that she saw him, she could finally ask. But when she looked at the person in front of her and saw his body turn into white bones when she couldn't touch him, she recalled what Li Jiao had said in the past. He was in a Rakshasa world, and he was in great pain. She didn't know what kind of pain it was, but it didn't stop her heart from hurting as if it was being torn apart when she saw him. Actually, she didn't really have these emotions. She had always been an indifferent person. The evolution of various emotions was more like a learning process. He pulled her into his arms and sighed. "What do you think I saw?" "Actually, what I saw was not what you imagined." He said, "Jean, didn't you already expect what I saw? Have we been marked by the heavens and earth from the moment we were born? Everything in this world counters each other. And if you want to obtain something, you have to pay a price. You should understand why we are the only ones with such an imprint in our minds. There were so many people in this world that everyone knew the price of karma. However, there were still many people who were involved. Mo Feihuan was able to disregard the lives of so many people for his own selfish desires, but he was still able to make use of the power of the array formation to take advantage of the lives of others and live well. This shouldn't have happened. He should pay the price for what he had done, but karma seemed to be unable to see him. Only Xiao Jin was engraved with a soul imprint that went deep into her bones. She had to pay the corresponding price for everything she did. It was as if she was incomparably powerful, but it seemed that it was really unfair to her. And why did she feel so unfair? Chapter 11:19. Whether it was fair or not was another matter. It was just that everything in this world seemed to be calculated clearly with her. Her memories were recovering bit by bit. Xiao Jin lowered her eyes in silence. She had already begun to see some things in her mind. However, these things did not exist 10,000 years ago. Even earlier than that, she seemed to have seen the passage of the long river of time, the prosperity and decline of all things, the extinction of species. She had seen a lot, and she had also seen the changes in this world. It was far from just 10,000 years, but many years. It could be a million years or countless years. These things existed in her mind as if they were just a distant memory. She did not remember, but she had never thought about why. It turned out that she only understood now. As long as she remembered, she could instantly understand some things. Karma is harsh on us. Song Yanqing held her in his arms. Although the things outside had already sensed that something was wrong and began to roar and run over, Song Yanqing's voice was still so gentle and clear. It's because our existence requires a price. Xiao Jin's hands trembled. Countless things flashed through her mind. She only looked at Song Yanqing and seemed to smile, as gentle as him. The Rakshasa world is our price. Because if she wanted to exist, she had to pay a price. She did not give up some things. In the end, she had to pay the price. Xiao Jin only looked at him and held his hand tightly. You don't have to pay this for me. This is what I should bear. It's not the same. Song Yanqing looked at her. His eyes were as gentle as water and as bright as the moon. I didn't understand this before. I didn't understand why you wanted to enter this world. I didn't understand what you wanted to see. But perhaps from a moment I chose to step into the human world like you, I understood. I don't know what you want, but I only want you. From the moment we were conscious, wasn't it? Through his eyes, even in this dark Rakshasa world, there seemed to be the most brilliant color in his eyes. Xiao Jin finally understood the past. It was not just about spiritual psyche masters, nor was it about the Rakshasa world. At that time formation points said, who doesn't desire the beauty of the world? In fact, it was already telling her that she was not human. In other words, the 4 array points were not just array points. They were independent and did not belong to any array master or spiritual reader. They were not array points, but the existence of natural laws. However, just like how there were spiritual readers in this world, they were actually existences that suppressed spiritual readers. Because all things need to counter each other. Since ancient times, Devour had never responded to her. She was devouring. She was devouring, and she was devouring. If she wanted to enter this world to experience it, she would have to pay a price. The price was the Rakshasa realm. This was karma's punishment for her and Song Yanqing. The reason why she was suppressed so much was because she only needed to maintain the order of the world. Once she entered the world, she would definitely be restrained. All the answers lay in the Rakshasa realm. Now that she had entered the Rakshasa realm, it meant that she had to make a choice. Without hesitation, she grabbed Song Yanqing's hand and said, I want you to come with me. Song Yanqing asked, Do you know what you're giving up? Xiao Jin did not hesitate. Anything in front of you doesn't matter. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.